And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 37 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit here on this Tuesday, September the 3rd, 2019, 7:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm in Toronto. Tony is in Atlanta, Georgia. And
broadcasting live from our porta potties.
That's right. And our porta potties here. I uploaded a video on my channel actually a few days ago about the episode of Fuller House, the sequel series to Full House, how Danny Tanner takes a shit in Stephanie's bedroom. Listen, just check it out, okay? It's too hard. It's too long to go into here. Just check it out if you have some time. Hey, this is technically the unofficial sort of kickoff to fall season.
Yeah, I mean, we're here. You guys are going to be in for a fun run here between now and Halloween and the horror shit that Dave and I have planned to talk about. We've been talking about doing this, and we knew it was going to be no pun on the it. It was going to be the launch of what we were going to dive into here from now all the way through the harvest. And personally, like we were saying before we went live, my favorite time of year. I love this time of year, man. I just get all charged up for it. But before we get into it, Dave, you have to be the deciding factor on this. We had a little debate last night in this app. I don't know if you ever heard of this app called Marco Polo. It's a video app.
I haven't heard of the app, no.
Okay, so basically what it is you can send like group messages to your friends and shit like that, ideas, whatever. So in a couple messages last night, we were sending video debating on who is the definitive best witch portrayal in cinema history of all time. And I said, I'm going to ask Dave this question at the beginning of the stream because I want to know his opinion on it. My opinion was the Wicked Witch from Wizard of Oz. That her portrayal of a witch surpasses any performance even to this day, as far as like from the laugh, the mannerisms, and the way she comes across on screen. I mean, you as a child, I mean, that's almost like your first introduction to horror to begin with is the Wicked Witch from the Wizard of Oz. I mean, there has been other portrayals of great witches. To me, I just felt like she was the definitive one as far as if you're going to talk about the best of them all. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this to you is because where the debate got heavy was someone said
heavy. What is
very
this?
Heavy.
What the hell is this? Back to the Future?
It got heated. It got a little heated, but someone said, well, what about Morticia and Wednesday Addams? And I said, well, I don't think that they would be technically counted as a witch, even though I know they do witchcrafty shit with the Addams family. Would you consider them as witches? So those are my two questions to you. Who's the definitive witch, and do you consider Morticia and Wednesday Addams a witch?
Well, I think I need to take a lot of time to think about that, but I think my immediate instinctual response is I think you're right in the sense of that when you think of a witch, the real sort of traditional, stereotypical. I mean, look, the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz is definitely the stereotypical, I'm gonna get you, my pretty.
And her laugh.
Exactly.
So
of course. Oh, of course. I mean, it's very what is known in or what became known in pop culture as just that, like what everybody thinks of when they think of a witch. The long nose, the green face, the hat, the broomstick. She is the perfect example, the perfect sort of archetypal example of
it's almost like
that.
She was born for that role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, just the character itself. I mean, I don't think she's necessarily the only one who could play that role, but I think what she played, she is the stereotype of what we think of when we think of a witch. It's her face for all intents and purposes. It's not actually her face, but it's that face on all the witch costumes and, and in cartoons and, and all that kind of jazz. So I think that's, and she herself was playing the stereotype as well. I mean, that archetype has been around for years and years and years, long before The Wizard of Oz. So I think in some regards, she is the perfect example of that. Now, when you get into, you start to branch off into other areas of witches and things like that, then she's like the cinematic sort of, version of a witch. But if you really dive into witchcraft and paganism and going back into all sorts of religions and traditions and witches weren't necessarily sitting around black cauldrons flying on, they might become a little more grounded, in terms of some of the presentations we've seen in other more mature movies.
Would you say more in line with like Morticia and Wednesday Addams?
I think that's a little cinematic, but yes, I think there's those examples of it as well, right? And then there's there's other examples too. I mean, yeah, like it's hard to say. But I think my argument would be that, what is the perfect example of a witch in cinematic history? I don't think it's a black and white answer. I think it's kind of like, well, are we talking about what we know a witch to be, the stereotype and sort of the fun kind of flying on a well, then it would probably be, it would be her. She's the epitome of what you think of, but then if you want to dive into real deep stuff, like going back to ancient religions and witchcraft and spiritual, all sorts of stuff, then maybe not, it might be a little more grounded. So it's hard to say. That's a loaded question, but a fun one. I would have liked to have been a part of that debate. That's interesting.
I was tempted to hit you up on Instagram last night. It's like, hey, dude, I need to get you in on this debate because it was so like, we were just going back and forth. But like when it came up with the Wednesday and Morticia thing, I get that they practice witchcraft, but would you consider them witches? Is that their character arc?
Yeah, I think like
as far as
witch,
the Addams family.
I think. I mean, in some regards, like a witch is it's somebody who practices in that, right? Somebody who could you could look at The Craft, right? That movie, The Craft.
That was one that was brought up last night,
right? And you could look at them as witches, right? But they're not green faced. Hey, my pretty. I mean, that's not what they do, because that's sort of the fairy tale cartoon sort of version of that. And I think a witch is just somebody who, I think we tend to place a label on it, like we have the Wicked Witch of the West in our heads, when we think of witch. But a witch is just somebody who practices witchcraft and black magic and is into that sort of part of that culture, and depending on how deep they go and how much they dive into it and what they practice and what they get into, and sometimes you can get yourself involved in cults, and it just goes down and down and down. You could be a witch, but you don't fly around on a broomstick. You could be very attractive in a witch, right? I mean, so I think there's different versions. I guess it just depends on what specifically are you talking about,
Oh, for sure. No, it was a fun, interesting debate. Got a little bit heated, a little bit, no, she wasn't that, someone brought up Samantha from Bewitched. And it's like, you can get into that, which is, kind of a legendary character when you think of television. But, just to defend my point on as far as first introduction to horror, in most cases, like you and I and a few other people are a very rare breed where we were so young at that age of 6 years old and being introduced to horror and Nightmare on Elm Street. Right. Most cases, you talk to parents who have had kids, every parent has some type of story about Wizard of Oz and the Wicked Witch and how it terrified their kids. And that's what I meant by as far as that first introduction to being scared and, what the hell is this that you're seeing on screen, when you're 4 years old and you get freaked out because there's this creepy old lady with green face and starts laughing and shit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is definitely the poster, the stereotype of what you think of when you think of a witch. Like when you think of Halloween and you think of the traditions around that time, you think of, the Black Cauldron, I'm a potion and magic and spells.
Exactly.
And, I mean, that's, she is the classic rendition of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's cool. That's
good to know. I will, the next time we have another conversation like that, I'm going to get you hooked up with that app and we'll get you in on it the next time. Because it's cool because you don't have to be live. You can just hit record and then you give your response and then we all watch your response and then the next person responds. So it's a cool way to interact with people without actually having to go through DMing and stuff like that. So I'll get you hooked up on that before the night is over. So you ready to get into some Pennywise?
Let's get into the mini series from 1990. 1990, directed by Halloween alum Tommy Lee Wallace. And depending on how you look at it, it was directed by Michael Myers, because Tommy Lee Wallace was Michael Myers a couple of times.
This is true. He went through the doors or the closet.
He did, yeah.
He knew exactly where to hit. And I think he was the reveal when she's in the hallway, right? He's wearing the mask when the reveal, when the lights come up slowly, the dim.
Oh, that one. That might be him too, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That may be him as well.
Other scenes that he was in?
It might have been him breaking through the door in the kitchen.
I knew that, yep.
Now, whether it's him who eventually we see with his hand through the door, that might be Nick Castle. Yep. But it was definitely Tommy that broke the door. So yeah, there's a couple of iconic things there. That is the director of It, the 1990 miniseries. This came out when we were 11, and this is like, it's interesting. Like, we're in a day and age now where we're in an era now where we have a cinematic version of It Chapter 1, and then of course It Chapter 2 comes out this weekend. Yeah. And
damn, 30 years. This movie's almost, I just realized, it just did the math in my head. This thing's
almost 30 years. Yeah. Almost 30 years. I know. Jeez. It's hard to believe. And, for those of you that are not old enough to remember, when It, the 1990 miniseries came out, I mean, it's a little dated now, as some things are. And certainly it's a little cheesy. And the effects, even though it cost about, I think it was like 12 million. Oh, no, was it 12 million? I forget what it was. It was something. I was just looking at here. What is
the production budget? It was 12 million. 12 million. Yeah, it was 12 million.
12 million. I mean, that's. I mean,
for 1990, that's not bad.
No, but you include inflation today, it's probably closer to 20 million, right? So it's quite a budget for a miniseries. Now, the effects are a bit dated, very dated actually, very dated. And there was a lot of things like, when you read up on the production and sort of the direction they wanted to go and the style they wanted to achieve, I mean, there was some inconsistencies and things like that. And this is only 4 years after the book was released. People forget that It is such a part of the pop culture consciousness now. I mean, there have been people that are older than us that have often said, we remember a time when there was no Star Wars. Like, we lived in a world when Star Wars ceased to exist. There was no such thing. Not us, but people that we know and have talked to. And it's kind of like, wow, like, I've always known Star Wars to exist on some level. And It, the book, was released in '86 when we were 7, and it was a big deal. And the movie came out 4 years later. It was the miniseries, and although it's funny and a bit comical now for maybe the younger generation to watch, certainly compared to what you saw from the major motion picture, when that miniseries came out, and I believe it was released on a Sunday or Monday. The first part was 2 hours, and then the next week they released the second part, which was 2 hours. And it was an event. Like, everybody was sitting down to watch this thing. And
especially in the first few years.
Oh,
it
yeah.
would come on, like, and you knew, it was usually around October. It was around, like, somewhere around Halloween. You knew it was coming, 1990, 1991. They kept, and that, yeah. I do kind of miss that. You know what I mean?
I do too.
Because it, like you said, it was an event. You knew when it was coming on, and you were going to be there to watch it in those 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, and to sort of piggyback on what you said there about how you miss that. A side note: I don't know if Disney Plus is doing this with all of their content, but I know The Mandalorian, as I mentioned to you last week when we were talking off air, The Mandalorian, they're releasing that 1 week at a time. So you will get the first episode.
Yes, you mentioned that. That's right.
Yeah, you're going to get the first episode 1 week, and then followed by the second episode and the third episode. Now, for those of you that have grown up in the social media streaming culture, that might really piss you off. For somebody like us in our 40s, I mean, that's just what we did. That's what, I mean, you would watch a TV show and you would have to wait till the next week. And in some ways, it's actually an interesting experiment that I agree with, because one of the things that Tony and I talk about, we'll get back to It here in a second, but it's just you reminded me of this, is when you release everything all at once, and you binge watch it. Generally speaking, you tend to binge watch over the course of sometimes all in one day, but generally over the course of a couple of days, or at least certainly within that week at the very least, or the very most, I should say. And, usually something like, say, Stranger Things, which there's a big build up to, will be the hot topic on everybody's mind, and everybody's talking about it at work by the water cooler. But after that week is done, it's over. And nobody's talking about it anymore because everybody just binged watched it, and it's in and it's out. By releasing The Mandalorian, the 10 episodes or 8 episodes or however many there are, over the course of 8 or 10 weeks, it keeps the conversation in the pop culture and relevant. And therefore, over the next 2 months, you will be continuing to talk about it. You will be continuing to wonder what's going to happen next on the next episode. And you're going to have to wait a week to see it, right? And there's a level of excitement and anticipation around that. That's not to say the show is going to be good. But anyway, I just wanted to piggyback on what you said there, because in some ways, as much as it is fun to binge watch, there is sort of a loss at being able to, wait for the next installment and that hype and that anticipation. And that's what it was like back in 1990. So
I remember that, every year when it would come around, you'd get excited for it, unless you did like what we would do. We would, record it on VHS tape, and then somehow it accidentally get re-recorded over by something else, and then you're like, crap, I got to re-record it again.
That's right.
But yeah, no, I remember that back in the early 90s, the event that it was. And I think you're right. I think that it would be kind of cool if Netflix did that with, like, say, Stranger Things, rather than dropping all 10 episodes or 8, whatever it is, doing it 1 week at a time, because you could keep those who do this like on a daily basis, as far as making YouTube videos, you give them something to talk about, speculate what's going to happen in the next week, with 11 and Mike and this and that and whatever. When you get it all in one shot, like you said, you're done talking about it within 2 days and you're on to the next thing. There's nothing more to talk about.
No, and it's just gone. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, yeah. So I remember when this came out, and I was visiting. So 1990. When did it release? When was it released? 1990. It was released on November 18th and November. Okay, 1990. Yeah, because I remember being. I guess I was visiting because I lived in Ottawa at the time with my dad, but I must have been visiting. I wonder what I was there for. November 18th. Why would I have been? Interesting. Unless it came on again a bit later, as you said.
Well, it did. It would come on once a year, because you have to remember, we didn't have instant streaming and all that stuff.
No, that's right. I just remember, just trying to think of how I was visiting my mom at that time. But anyway, that aside, I remember us all sitting down to watch it. And it was a really cool, like, it was genuinely, like, it's funny to think of now, especially for those of you that maybe are a bit younger, but it was genuinely frightening. I mean, I don't mean like off the wall Jaws level frightening, but there was a creepiness to the movie. And, it was a best-selling book that had just come out 4 years prior. And
which is a pain in the ass to read, and I still read it to this day. You look at that book and you're like, okay. You just like it's like you got to psych yourself up because it's such a long book, but it's such a great read. Right.
And although it is, in comparison to the book, my understanding is obviously the miniseries is not nearly as dark or as
and even these new movies are not as dark and as intense as they really could have gone.
See, that's where I wanted them to go, but we'll talk about that in the next thing.
Yeah. But I agree with you as far as the creep factor. I take nothing away from Bill's new version, his adaptation. Bill, who's playing Pennywise.
Bill
Skarsgård, yeah. Nothing away. I like it. He's made it his own. It's a different look. There's just a very serious creepiness to Tim Curry's It. And when I do decide to introduce that into my photography, it's going to be Tim Curry's adaptation of It.
That's awesome.
It's that creepy clown driving a white minivan. Don't get into it, but he's going to lure you in there with all sorts of goodies and shit, and you go anyways because you're a stupid kid. And, you're not saying you, the audience. I'm just...
Yeah.
To paraphrase, folks, don't take it literal, okay? Don't take me seriously. Anyways, it's just that creepiness. Even like as campy and cheesy as the close-ups of Curry's teeth are, you know, that you can say looking at it now in retrospect, there's still a freaking creepiness to it, even as an adult watching it. When I look at Bill's It in the new version, it just kind of seems too comedic. You know what I mean? I think Tim Curry really embraced that darkness to Pennywise, whereas I almost feel at times when I'm watching Bill's version of it, I feel like I'm watching like a Joker. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. I
think that makes sense.
It does. For me, here's how I see it. There's no doubt that in terms of production value, in terms of the feel and the tone, listen, you watch It Chapter 1 from 2017, it's a darker film. It's more in line with the book than the miniseries is. Obviously, it's a genuine, full-on, full-blown horror movie. 100% absolutely. And when you watch the miniseries right beside it, the miniseries looks like dog shit compared to it. But when you
with a nice indie feel, though.
Oh, for sure. But when you look at the miniseries on its own, and you think of the time that it came out, nearly 30 years ago, and you realize that, you know, this was, I mean, Tim Curry's performance was, it was, and again, it's a little dated now, but to think about it relevant in the time, and you're just seeing this, you know, for the first time, there was a almost a pedophile creepness to it.
Yes.
And it was very sort of like, I'll never forget when he's in the sewer, right? And he's like, you know, he pops up, and yes, he looks like a man in the sewer. Whereas, and I understand it's not, I mean, look, I have no doubt that even King himself would say, no, the movies is more along the, I get it. But when he pops up in the sewer and he's like, "Hiya, Georgie," you know, and he's there and he's got the big nose and all that kind of stuff. And then he's like, he's like, "Oh, but they all do." And he's being that, you know, because obviously Pennywise himself, like the entity of you know, whatever this thing is not a clown. It manifests itself as a clown to gain the trust of children. And, right. And there's a lot of people who don't realize that he's not really a clown. You know, he shows himself as a clown. Like, the kids see him as a clown because he's trying to get the trust of the kids, right? "Oh, I'm a clown, Georgie." You know, it's like, "Oh, it's a clown." You know, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but when he's talking to Georgie in the sewer in the 1990 miniseries, he's there, and the way that Georgie, I think, says something to the effect of, you know, "Oh, do they float?" or blah, blah, blah. And he's like, "Oh, they float, Georgie. They all float." Like, it's almost, there's a change. Whereas with Skarsgård, he's all, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just comparing the two. We're don't worry, we're going to talk about It Chapter 1 and 2 very soon. Hint, hint.
Let's just say it's a week of it.
Yeah, there you go. So we will talk about that. But and there's nothing wrong with Bill's. I mean, Bill's it's creepy as fuck. Look, if I saw Bill in my sewer, I'd be like, "I'm walking the other way." I mean, it's not going to happen, right? But there's something. But Bill's a constant, right? He seems to be at a certain level.
Right, his range is very short, whereas Tim Curry's range.
But I don't know if his range is short, but that's where he is. He's there, and then he'll go, you know, here and then here, and he's always creepy. Whereas as Tim Curry, there was almost this softer side to him, and then there's this contrast where it's like, oh my God, like this guy, he looks and sounds like a fucking pedophile. Yeah. You know, he's like, "Don't you want it? Don't you want it?" You know, and it's like, what the fuck? There's almost like this subconscious sexual sort of luring of this right. Man. And now you watch it now in today's climate, in today's environment, in today's culture, in terms of where we are, in terms of our production value and society, and, you know, it can be a little comical, but it's like watching a black and white movie today. No, when you watched it in 1946, it fucking creeped people the fuck out.
Sure.
You know, because there was no internet in 1990, right? There was no social media. There was no, I mean, you would only read about pedos on the news and you know, shit like that. And I'm not saying that he was a pedophile in that movie. I'm just saying that there was that sexual sort of kind of undertone there, and Tim Curry played it play whatever he was doing beautifully. And it was genuinely creepy, not scary per se, not like, not scary. Although there's a couple of things like our thumbnail where that's a scary image. He was just unsettlingly
Disturbing.
creepy. Yeah, there was something creepy about him, like that creepy guy that, you know, you just like, oh, I have a fucking creepy neighbor down the street. I have no doubt he's fucking creepy. There's just something off about him, you know, and that's what worked for me about his rendition. How do you feel about it?
Same. And just so that, like, what I was starting to say about Bill's performance as Pennywise, it's been very, like, I think, me personally, I think it's been very leveled. Like the range with it. I'm not saying him as the actor. Him as the actor, he's a good actor.
Oh,
but
sure.
But the range that he's going, and I don't really necessarily blame him. I would more so look at the director and go, why are you keeping him pretty much here? You know,
hang on. Wait. Hang on. Tammy Newborn.
Wait, what?
Nuance, Tammy. Nuance. The internet existed in 1990.
Well, email existed in 1984, but you had to go through like a million steps just to send a fucking email.
Of course it exists. Of course, I'm talking about as a household commodity, is what I'm saying.
We didn't get our first computer until 94.
No, I didn't have my first email address until 1998. Okay, Nuance. Read between the lines. The internet existed in 1990, Dave. And Tammy, stop with the fake accounts. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, so like I was saying, you know, Bill's range as an actor is really good. So I'm not even like selling him short as an actor, but I would feel like I would want to sit with the director and go, why are you short ranging his portrayal of Pennywise?
Right.
When you look at Tim Curry's version and the way Tim Curry played the character, he had the range. He was going, you know, here and there with it. And like you said, he wasn't going for the yes, there was a horror factor, but it wasn't gore. It was that disturbing, you know, I wonder if he even looked up Gacy, you know, and tapped into a little bit of Gacy, you know, in reading up on what Gacy did and, you know, maybe took a little bit of that. I mean, I would love to sit down and ask him because two of my favorite roles by Tim Curry are Pennywise and Dr. Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror. And like, I would love to know where he went, you know, to get there with Pennywise, because he really is very disturbing. He's very creepy, and the way his range goes up and down, it's just almost perfection.
You're absolutely right, and you can't. It's difficult to compare the two. I know people want to do it, and certainly, you know, the generation today that is growing up with this new It might want to do it, but you have to understand that Tim Curry's Pennywise was goofy. Tim Curry's Pennywise was creepy. I'm not saying he was downright Freddy fucking Krueger from Elm Street, you know, 1 and 2. He came across as almost a real man. That's the point I was saying, is that, you know, when you saw him, you know, of course there were no moments where really he had an opportunity to give the illusion that he was a real man, but it was the way he looked. And then there was that change. Skarsgård's Pennywise there's no question he's supernatural. There's never a moment where you would look at Skarsgård's Pennywise, for better or worse, right or wrong, appropriate to the book or not. We're just talking about facts here.
Right.
I'm not debating it. I'm just talking about facts.
Yep.
There's never a moment where you would look at him and be confused that he's anything other than a supernatural entity, right? Whereas Tim Curry, there's those, because he's got a big, you know, real clown nose, and he's, you know, there's no CGI, right? He's oh, Georgie, what? And then all of a sudden there's the change. So yes, he is goofy. He's a clown. He's goofy, for better or worse, right or wrong, you know, appropriate to the book or not. He was that, and I think in some ways, maybe not today in today's culture, but in 1990, when you couldn't jump on the internet at home because nobody had it, very few people had computers.
No, we had to send each other smoke signals,
right? And talk in tin cans. Hello.
Exactly.
But
big.
certainly,
oh my God, big.
That's right. But at that time, you know, that was genuinely creepy to look at, because like you said, the John Wayne Gacy thing is beautiful. It's almost that sort of thing. It's kind of like it's weird. Like it's this creepy guy, and then all of a sudden there's moments in the movie where you're like, oh fuck, he's more than a creepy guy, even though you always know he is. But I'm just saying, oh shit, he actually is supernatural. Like when he gets the fangs out, and like when he whatever the case is. I always. You really can't compare them. They're too like, to compare Skarsgård and Tim Curry is just ridiculous. Really, at the end of the day.
I feel like if you look at the newer It versus the older It, like if someone didn't tell me it was based on a book, I would almost think that this was just a horror movie that, modern day horror with the modern day sound effects, jump scares and whatnot. In fact, we were talking about that this weekend doing our photo shoot, the Nightmare on Elm Street photo shoot, when I was talking about it with the people that were with me, and they even said the same thing. The 1991 is a little bit creepier, whereas this one is more fun. Like we laugh, but we have a good time. It's a good popcorn movie, kind of like Ready or Not. I just saw that and thought it was a little bit overhyped for the reviews that it got, but it was fun. It was a good popcorn movie. I enjoyed it.
Right.
That's the same thing with It. When I sit down, the newer It, when I watch that, it's a popcorn movie. It's fun. It's lighthearted. When I'm watching the original It, and it's not just because we grew up with it and that's what we had. It's just there's a certain layer of Tim Curry's performance of Pennywise that, like I said, it still kind of creeps me out to this day. Sure, I mean, we can get into, like, I see it, where people talk about the acting performances of the adults versus the kids and whatnot. And I often wondered, maybe did they choose, like, because there's moments there where the acting, for example, when John Ritter is shaking his head as he's coming out of the flashback sequence, it almost looks like that was a rehearsal scene that they put in the movie, because I'm like, John Ritter's a better actor than this, because I felt like there were moments that they were putting cuts in that looked like more rehearsal scenes than actual acting scenes. Because I mean, look, you look at what's her name, Annette O'Toole, John Ritter, Harry Henderson, and the rest of the cast that were there with them. These are good actors. These are solid actors. And
Olivia Hussey's in there too.
Olivia Hussey, yeah, who plays what's his name's love interest, Billy, yeah. So you got solid performances, but there were cuts that I in rewatching it here recently, looking at it going, Jesus, man, this looks like a rehearsal scene, that not actually the actors actually doing the scene. Because like I said, Ritter's a much better actor. There was just a couple, like for example, when he lays that kiss on Annette O'Toole, which eventually becomes Pennywise, you're looking at that kiss like, Jesus, that's a bad on-screen kiss. Like, this is Jack fucking Ripper, okay, or Ritter, whatever his name is on Three's Company. All right, this is the
Jack Tripper. Jack Tripper. John Ritter plays Jack Tripper.
you know what happened is I looked up at a new book that I'm excited to recall, Ripper. It's by Stephen Hunter, that I just got. Someone suggested it, and then my just brain fart for a moment there. Yeah,
right.
My autocorrect person, I'm sure, who's out there is going to correct me on that in the comments section. I have a personal autocorrect guy.
Okay.
Gets me on everything that I do wrong and pronounce wrong. So yeah, Jack Tripper, looking at that scene, it looked like, Jesus, that was like the rehearsal and not the actual take.
It may have been.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we were talking about this off camera, but I actually, when I watched the 1990 miniseries just recently, I actually, it's sort of common, a general consensus is that the second half is not as good as the first half. People tend to enjoy the first half more than the second half. Funny enough, and I think that was true of me as well for many years. But funny enough, I watched it about a week or so ago, and I found myself enjoying the second half more today than I think I ever have. I still agree that the first half with the kids is better. I think it is better, but I enjoyed it more. And I thought, I wonder why that is. And then I think it dawned on me, and I don't know if this is actually true, but it's the only thing I could think of, outside of maybe enough time has gone by and I'm just, revisiting it and things sort of, from a new light, is the fact that, in a sense, that is true, I guess, is that I'm a 40-year-old man now, and I am the age that the characters, the adult actors, the adult characters are supposed to be in the part two. So therefore, as a 40-year-old man, I find this I'm not thinking about this consciously, but I'm just saying I'm being able to relate to adults. I'm watching a movie with adults. I'm an adult. I find what they're saying interesting. I find their character arcs interesting, right? I find what they're talking about and how we're back and oh my God. And, Stan was not killed, but, committed suicide and blah, blah, blah. And they're all, at the Chinese restaurant and they're talking and then they go through their little things. And, like, I didn't find myself thinking it was boring. I didn't find myself thinking it was uninteresting. I didn't, there's that scene with, Olivia Hussey where she's in the car at the gas station and, there's Pennywise. Don't you want it? Don't you want it? You know what I mean? It's just like, that's just so awesome. But so I think I liked it. I agree that the first half is still better. But I think as a kid growing up, or even as a teenager, I undoubtedly liked the first half better because they were kids. And as a kid, 11, 12, 13, 14, however old I was, I could relate to those kids more. It was like watching another version of The Goonies or another version of, Stand By Me or The Monster Squad or you have It, and of course I like watching the kids and them going through the kid things and facing Pennywise because you're almost on some level living vicariously through them as a kid, as a young boy.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the second half, a young boy can't relate to the adult. So boring, next. Although it is not as good, I think that's part of it. And I think now that I'm a 40-year-old guy, I'm like, this is all right. No, I agree. It's not as good, but it's not as bad as everybody seems to make it out to be, in my opinion. At least I didn't think it was. I don't know, Tony, do you feel the same way?
No, I totally agree. Like I said, I didn't mind them as an adult. I do agree that the pacing tends to not be it's not as smooth cut like the first half is when they're a kid.
Right.
And I always forget that Seth Green plays Stan. Every time I pop it on and rewatch it, I'm like, oh my God, that's right. Seth Green is fucking Stan.
Yeah, you forget that Seth Green, because he's so short, right? Because you forget that, well, because it's like Seth Green looks like he's 22 playing Stan. It's like, what the hell is, he kind of has that, not 22, obviously it's a bit of hyperbole, but I just mean that it's like, he was old enough
he was
to play that in 1990.
You don't think he should be old enough, right?
Exactly, but he's actually we're 40. He's about 44 or 45. Yeah,
he's a few. So when you do put the math, he is old enough. But every time I pop it in, I always forget that he's Stan. Of course, the late Jonathan Brandis, who was kind of a '90s teen idol.
Yep.
With It, and
now he committed suicide, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. He's good friends with Daniel. He was good friends with Danielle Harris. They were really close. In fact, she posted something here, a tribute to him, a drawing that he did. Back in the day, but I remember him. I remember my sister having, from the Teen Beat magazine, she had his picture up on the. But he committed suicide in the '90s, right? He didn't. He didn't get into the 2000s. Is that correct? Or am I wrong?
I think he committed suicide I thought it was early 2000s.
I don't know.
It was.
I don't know.
Right,
I think the last thing I saw him in was the Chuck Norris movie that he did, the karate movie.
Yeah, I remember that. I also remember he did Ladybugs with Rodney Dangerfield, I think. I think it was called Ladybugs, something like that. A soccer movie or something?
Oh my God, that's right. I totally forgot about that. And yes, the chat room corrected us. It was Richie. Seth Green played Richie, not Stan.
Right, Richie, Stan. Right, Richie. That's right.
Yeah, so which is Harry Henderson when he gets older. Correct? I think that's the way it is. Yeah.
Harry Henderson?
Right. Harry Henderson.
Harry Henderson.
And Harry and the Hendersons. Harry Anderson. I'm batting 1,000 tonight. I'm batting 1,000 with my Archie Bunker mispronunciation of words and people. And
I love it. Harry Henderson. As soon as you said that, I'm picturing wait a minute. The guy that played the older Richie was the 6 foot,
Dave, just take me out and Old Yeller my ass right now. That's
who played the older, who played Harry and the Henderson, the big Bigfoot, was the same guy that played the Predator. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Predator. Yeah, I think he's dead now, actually, sadly. Anyway, so
folks, sorry, it's gonna be one of those nights where I'm gonna fuck shit up.
It's all right. It's all right.
Get through it with us.
It happens. It happens. Nobody's perfect. Fuck, man. Fuck.
You got to be on social media now because they're going to come
you
at
do.
you if you're not perfect.
Excuse me, Tony and Dave. Did you know that?
So anyway,
Wow. Well,
so yeah, no, I agree with you. I like everything you said about the second half. I agree with you, but it is kind of cool that we both kind of look at each other and be like, you know what? Yeah, I think we still enjoyed the first half, but the second half's not as bad as we remember it. It's actually, and I think some of it, at the very least, has to do with our age and being able to connect with these older characters.
sure.
You know,
Well, because too, you have to remember when we're watching this back in 1990, okay, we could relate a lot to those kids because technology had not evolved to where it is today.
That's right.
We were still going out riding bikes and playing in the neighborhood.
100%.
You know, all the shit that those kids were doing,
Nobody
which was
knew.
set in the 60s, right?
And that was
set in the 60s.
Exactly.
So, you know, we could identify with that and relate to that because we were still doing that shit back in the late 80s, early 90s.
100%. And that's what I meant when I said that there was no internet. I mean, obviously, literally the internet existed, but I'm talking about as that household commodity, as that household thing. Nobody was on the internet. Very few people had computers, right? I mean, really, you had game consoles like Nintendo, and some people still had, you know, their leftover Atari, maybe, you know, but in terms of just
was it the Nintendo and Sega and
Sega
Atari?
was something like that. Sega was coming in at the early 90s there, and Nintendo was starting to kind of, well, there was the Super Nintendo that came in shortly after that, but it was that thing where like now you can go online and you can search out all this stuff and you can go online and read about all this.
Kids are doing this, you know, they're on their phones and you know.
Yes, I mean, how many times do you watch a movie? I don't mean in the theater because obviously, you know, you're not supposed to do that, but you're watching a movie at home and something in the movie, you're like, oh, that's interesting. And you pause the movie to look it up on your phone. I do it all the fucking time. All the time I'll be watching a movie at home and there'll be something will happen in the movie or something will happen in the show and I'll be like, oh, and I'll pause it and I'll be like, and I'll spend like 5-10 minutes reading about something that I saw, and then I'll go back to the movie. Of course, you couldn't do that 30 years ago, you know? And so this whole idea of this clown, this creepy clown, you know, that is what it was. And he had this creepiness. Well, like I said, the 1990 miniseries didn't outright say that Tim Curry was, or that version of Pennywise had pedophile undertones or overtones, depending on how you look at it. It didn't say that at all. But there was something about his portrayal, either conscious or unconscious, deliberate or not, intentional or not, that came across in that way and added that extra creep factor there. And it was a brilliant portrayal for its time. And, you know, but now, of course, in the culture we live in and the environment, you know, we live in, and, you know, I don't think it would necessarily, if you were to portray Tim Curry's version today, it would have to be, in a different sort of execution. It couldn't be as sort of hokey as it was. But some of my favorite, like I think my favorite character, I'm trying to think of my favorite character. I really enjoy, all the kids were quite good, really. All the kids were quite good.
I could relate to them. Losers Club, of course.
Yep.
You know, and I definitely could relate to almost all of those, especially the guys. I think there was a bit of my personality in every single one of those characters. You know, the quick wit, smart mouth of Richie, not Stan, played by Seth Green. But the timidness, the timidness of Stan. Okay, you know, and that, you know, but having the courage enough to go into, now I know that's not an abandoned house that he goes into in the 1990 film, right? Because it is. Is it abandoned, or is it?
No, it's the sewer, isn't it? The sewer they go into.
He goes in a house. He goes into a house. That's when
in the 1990.
That's because he holds up the book and he's reciting.
Oh, right.
Is that abandoned or not abandoned? I guess it could be open to interpretation.
I can't remember
if you want, but having the cojones to go in there and do it, I have that about me. And then of course there's Bill's character with his bike and whatnot, we could all, relate to him.
Yeah.
And even Mike, that kind of that leadership role that, we're going to, keep everyone together. And what's his name there? John Ritter's character.
Ben.
The hopeless romantic who falls in love with the girl. I think, for those of us who consider themselves as part of that type of losers types club, and I certainly did as a kid growing up as part of that, like that outcast, right. I could identify with a little bit of each of those kids and having a little bit of their personalities, which is what I think the newer version sort of is missing. You know what I mean? I felt like the newer version was too Stranger Things like. And I'm not saying that because the kid who plays Mike from Stranger Things is in there. It just kind of had that vibe that, and maybe it's because I'm looking at it from an adult eyes, rather than a kid's eye. Maybe kids who watch it can relate to it a little bit. But then again, I don't know how, because, kids today got all the technology and shit that these kids are not having in this movie. But I forgot where I was going with this.
Well, I definitely have some things to say on that, but I'm going to reserve it for the next
one.
Yeah, for sure.
But as far as the 90s version and being able to identify with those kids and relate to those kids and how well each of those young actors were able to deliver it. The girl who played Beverly, she was okay. I obviously liked Annette O'Toole a little bit better. In the adult role, the girl I thought was maybe the weakest of the link in the original bunch. I didn't think she was keeping up with what the rest of the young kids were doing as far as acting goes. I thought her range was very, very short. And of course, again, this is 1990. It's a TV series. So I don't like to over critique and I don't like to criticize too much. But other than that, I mean, yeah, as far as like some of the backlash, like you were saying with the way the scenes are delivered and how, it can be viewed as campy and hokey and, and the performances aren't as good. Again, keeping in mind it's 1990. But again, I also think that there's got to be footage there, whether or not it was disposed of or whatever. I think personally they were taking either rehearsal takes or different takes that just doesn't seem to. If you watch the movie from an editing point of view, you can clearly see Ritter's performance is solid over here, but a little green over here. And I just look at it from that perspective. I think they didn't blend in the right takes, or maybe the takes just didn't flow with what Wallace was trying to put out there for us to see on the two-part miniseries.
Very interesting. I'm going to have to
watch it from that perspective.
Yeah, I will. I'll take a look at that again and see if I feel the same way. And you know what? The beginning of the 1990 miniseries, it starts off pretty strong because I love the opening scene of the little girl who's playing sort of outside.
Oh, that's one of my favorite scenes. Yeah,
and the laundry sheets there. And you see Tim Curry as Pennywise, and then there's that one shot where there's a shot where he's like this, right? I'm tapping my glasses for this, where he's kind of like, he's being kind of cute, right? He's kind of like that, whatever. And it's a quick thing. And then there's another shot where, you see the girl and she's kind of going like this, kind of trying to see him, and then there's it's a quick shot again where it's through the sheets, right? And he's like, it's just the way his demeanor has changed, and it's something about it. He looks creepy. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like there's a man out there, a real man, which it isn't. Obviously, he is an entity, but it feels like there's a man out there trying to be cute with this little girl, and then all of a sudden something changes, and we just see a glimpse of it, and it's through the laundry. I'm sure the chat room knows the shot that I'm talking about, where it's quick. It's just like, he's not going like this, and all of a sudden he's like this, and it's not full on like teeth or anything. It's just the way he looks. It's genuinely creepy. Right. And then of course something happens, and the mother comes out to search for the daughter and can't find her, and it actually is a pretty solid opening. It still holds up today. I think that opening. Do you see it the same way or
same way? I think that opening is better than the new opening. Not that there's anything. Look, the new opening was shocking. They obviously went for the shock value, and we'll obviously talk about that here in a few days.
Yeah.
But the 1990s version where you don't see what happens to the girl and you just see the tricycle wheel spinning there and the mom going, hey, I forget the little girl's name in the movie. What was her name?
Too, yeah. I forgot.
The chat room. Well, they get our back. So
they do. They do.
She's looking for her daughter, and like that's genuinely creepy and scary. I always say you don't necessarily need blood and gore to scare someone. You can go, what the fuck just happened here, and create a sense of urgency and tension, like Tommy Lee Wallace did when he put that scene together in the 1990 film. And it is such an effective scene. And even when you look at, like you just talked about, that the laundry scene with, not the laundry scene, but the sheets, and you're seeing Tim Curry's face, and then you see it really quick, like you said, that quick change. It lasts for just a nanosecond, but it's so effective. And that's the kind of tension and scare that I always look for in a horror film.
Right.
Lorianne. Thank you guys, Lorianne.
I want to see if I can bring this up here. Let me see if I can bring this up.
Tammy knew, and of course I'm always screwing up. You're just learning this shit now. Where the hell have you been for the last 3 years? I screw shit up all the time.
That's right. Damn, I don't think I can do that. Can I do that? Let me just see something here. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm just going to, let me see if people can see this. Can people see that? Can you see that? Let me see. There's a bit of a delay, so it's probably going to come up. Can you see that? Did anything come up on your end?
Nope, I didn't see anything.
Can the chat room see it?
The chat room saying it.
Yes. Okay, cool. Well,
yeah, that scene.
Yeah. Now that there is shortly after he does. It's so effective. It's so effective. And it's
simple.
It's very simple, and it's a very quick shot. Very quick shot. Now, again, I'm not.
He's stealing from Carpenter.
Oh, I'm sure he learned a thing or two with John Carpenter. Sure.
The scene with Laurie looking down in the sheets.
Right. But what I love about this is that he doesn't linger on it. We're able to linger on it now because obviously we have the still image of it. But when you watched this in 1990, you couldn't go to the internet and find this image. You couldn't go to your phone and find this image. You couldn't do that. So when you saw this go by your eyes at, I don't know, maybe it seemed like a second, if that, it was like, whoa, what the fuck was that? That was creepy as fuck.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you look at Tim Curry here and you just look at his facial expression and just his eyes and everything, like he's not even doing anything. And just this one shot, I'm sorry, he buries Bill when it comes to Pennywise.
Well, to be fair, I think I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that he buries Bill. I would say that they're two different versions of the character. And, you could make the argument that Bill's version is much more in line with the book. All I'm saying is that what I like about this version is that it feels like a real man who's creepy. Now, right or wrong, whether that's true to the book or not, whether that was the smart thing to do or not, whether Tommy Lee Wallace, it should have been executed like that or not, we can debate that. But just as its own thing, I've always found, it feels like, who the fuck is this guy out here in the fucking sheets? Get the fuck out of here, you fucking perv. Like, it feels kind of like that, where I don't feel that with Bill. Bill always looks like and that's great too, right or wrong, perfect, and but his is always clearly supernatural. There's never a moment where I think, oh my God, he looks like a clown, who's in the sheets trying to get at, little kids. He always looks like, and maybe that's the right way to go. Maybe that's true to the book. Maybe that's what people want to see. And maybe that is the proper rendition of the character of Pennywise is Bill Skarsgård. Maybe it's true, but that's irrelevant because we're talking about why Tim Curry's performance was so effective and why many people, even before the 2017 film, were able to actually, were able to actually genuinely consider it frightening. It's not scary like in the ways that the new It is. It more gets in your head of it's unsettling. It just feels unsettling. Not all the time. I mean, there's shit in that 1990 miniseries that's fucking goofy, and the effects are fucking very dated and goofy. but there's moments where you're like, that's a little creepy. That is creepy, you know? So yeah, that shot I absolutely love. I love that shot. And,
sure.
yeah, it's a great shot. I thought there was something else here, but, yeah. Okay. All right. So,
well, I just figured out who Tammy was because Tammy left a similar comment on my Instagram under the name Devante. Those who live in glass houses should definitely not throw stones. And my only message to you, Devante, is that you can take a flying fuck and sit on this and rotate.
Oh, what's there? I wasn't following you for 3 years. Only 1 year. You make the silliest, most dumbfounded points ever. You think being Slayer. What's he bring up?
And he says the same shit on my Instagram account, and therefore you got blocked.
Listen. This is
as far as my slavery comment, if you don't think if you don't think that
Tammy's gone, so there you go.
Who are working for less than minimum wage and not being paid equally and fair is not a form of modern day slavery, then you are the biggest idiot on the planet to sit there and think that there are people in this country right now every day working in hotels, working, doing landscaping. They ain't getting fair pay. They ain't getting the same pay that other people are getting. If you don't think that that's not a form of modern day slavery, get the fuck out of here with your stupidity, dude. I swear, I hope our paths fucking cross one day, because if there's one person that I want to level into, it is your fucking sorry ass. Take a look at his fucking Instagram account. Okay, this is the goofiest looking motherfucker that has ever lived. And I fucking have had it up to here with this idiot who comes in here and tries to fucking say shit and start shit, who's never met me or Dave once, ever. Okay, that's my rant.
There you go. Done, ladies and gentlemen. I will say this. Devante has many different accounts. And what the problem is, what Devante has to remember is that if you're going to come into the chat room under a pseudonym or under a different name.
Don't say the same shit that you're saying on your other name.
Well, what I'm saying is that then you have to play nice, because you expose yourself very easily. The problem is that eventually they can't, and they expose themselves. It's very obvious who the person is. And I have no issues with anybody being in the chat room, behaving themselves, and engaging in healthy debate. But at the end of the day, if you're just going to be a dick, well, I'm just going to remove the chat.
And I'm sorry about that, but that was about a year's worth of listening to that shit, and finally, I had enough.
Oh, I get it, I understand it, but Tony, always remember, you are above it. You are better than it. They
Fuck
do
that
not.
Shit. I want to fucking meet this dude face to face and fucking lay him out on the ground. Bullshit.
No. But what I mean is that they do not have the courage to put themselves out there in a visual medium, and you do. And what I say to that is that I am flattered that somebody cares enough about what I do to actually care enough to talk about it.
Taking what I said out of context and not understanding the context of what I said about modern day slavery and about people not being paid fairly, that how much that's a big problem across our country. Come on, you use your fucking head. Everyone knows that. And everyone knows that would be considered a modern form of slavery. It's not the slavery that we're talking about back in the day, but it is a form of it when someone is making like $4 an hour while this other person over here is making 10. Come on. That was the context of which we were talking about that night.
I don't even remember that fucking conversation.
That was like a few months ago. This dude, he has been on that. Like, look, I'm not even kidding you. This goes back to like earlier this year. He has been on that one thing towards me for 8 fucking months. Has not let it go. And like he took what I said out of context, not understanding what I meant by that, in the modern form of slavery and whatever. He's just a big fucking goofball. And I hope to God I meet him someday. That's the one thing I want, Lord. Just one thing: meet Devante so I can fucking level him, Lord. That's it. That's all I want. I don't want $1 million. I just want to meet this one person.
Wow. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Good night, everybody. See you next week. No. Devante. Oh, Devante. I'm sure he'll be back at here in a few minutes. So what are some of your favorite moments from the 1990 miniseries?
Hi-Yo Silver away, man. Hi-O
Hey,
Silver.
there you go. Hi-O
You know?
Silver, away!
That's just, I mean, even though I know that was from Lone Ranger, right? That's the context of
I think something like that, yeah.
Lone Ranger, which makes sense because I think in the 60s, Lone Ranger, that's when that TV series was out and was popular, right? Was it
Yeah.
late 60s or, I mean, late 50s, early
I
60s?
can't, somewhere around there.
So I also got to say this. I liked the aesthetic look of it in the first film of the childhood, the setting, the town of Derry, whatever it is, that they shot in the location. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the new one, but I do like those old style homes. It had a very nice small town feel and vibe to it. That was one of the other things that I really liked about it. Cinematography, I could tell there was moments that Tommy Lee was definitely pulling from the Carpenter, Dean Cundey arsenal. You can definitely get a sense of, Halloween 3 type of vibes going on there, which is cool. I mean, I do the same shit as a photographer. I know that there are certain style shots that I like to do that I always go for, especially like this weekend, like we were doing the Nightmare on Elm Street shoot, and I was struggling. I wasn't like, some things weren't working the way I thought it would work. So I always go back to, the bag where I know what's going to work. And when I start to do that, I end up finding my rhythm as a creator and when I'm creating shit. So I could tell at times that Wallace was definitely tapping into like the Halloween and Halloween 3 type vibe, which I enjoy it. And, back when I was 11 watching this, I didn't pick up on it. Now watching it as a 40-year-old, I'm going, I see what you did there.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. He would have taken inspiration from Carpenter, no doubt. I think, for me, definitely the opening scene of the first part, definitely a favorite moment of mine. I also quite like the moment with Ben when it's a little cheesy.
Which one?
Well, when he's down by the sewer and you hear Ben, it's me, Ben. His dad or whatever, right? And he's in the
the military outfit.
Yeah, the military outfit. It's like, come on, Ben. And then the voice changes like, come on, we all float down here, Ben. Or whatever he's saying, right? And then all of a sudden it's Tim Curry and he's like, or whatever it is. Imagine seeing that. Like it's genuinely sort of frightening, and it was a cool sort of moment. It made you realize that he can shapeshift. I don't know if that's the first time we realize that he can shapeshift, but certainly it's a very prominent moment that tells you that he can be whatever it can be, whatever it wants to be. And that's scary. I also I think this is in the second part. I think it's the second part where you see all of the graves, right? But there's one grave that's open, and you see Pennywise digging the grave. Do you remember that part? Yeah. That I really like. I like that because
I love when Ritter
that's
passes
creepy.
him. I love when Ritter's passing him on the road and he's waving, and Ritter looks back and he sees him.
Yes, and then the balloon pops up.
There's really good, very simple scares. Like, for example, like if I could recreate this shot, it would be awesome to do. First, find an old library and get a shot of Pennywise up looking down with all the balloons falling down and shit like that. That's one of my favorite scenes as far as like a compositional scene goes, because the juxtaposition of I think it's Annette O'Toole who's in the library, right? I don't think in that specific shot, is it the whole cast that's in there while he's up there and he's like doing and he's laughing?
I thought it was Richie, right?
Was it Richie?
It was the older Richie. Yeah, it was the guy that plays the judge on Night Court, whatever his name was. He died recently.
Harry Anderson. He's also on Cheers.
He died. He died recently. I thought
was in there. Yeah, he did die recently.
Maybe.
I could be wrong, but yeah, I know he's in there. I love that scene. I just love that whole library scene.
Beep, Richie.
Richie. So
Yeah, that's some good shit there too. I like that. I like the
very simple photography. You know, when you really break down it and you watch it, there, you know, the photography and the way they were composing their shots and the scenes that they were setting up was very simple, and the comedic timing was also just perfect. Like, it wasn't oversaturated, which is what I felt in the new It. I felt the new It was a little too oversaturated on the comedic shit, whereas in the original, there was comedic. No argument, no denying it, but I think it was timed better. You know, they didn't oversaturate it. And again, for the time, 1990, $12 million budget, TV miniseries, which also, and again, you have to remember, TV miniseries, that's the key word in this. TV miniseries, 1990 TV miniseries, and what the FCC would allow to be broadcast on television. So
that's right.
You know, that's the other thing people forget, that, you know, Tommy Lee Wallace couldn't go as dark as I'm sure he probably wanted to if this was maybe a motion picture movie, because of the fact that you are restrained to what you were allowed to do back in 1990. Right. I mean, this is the year when, oh my God, parents freaked out because Dylan had sex with his girlfriend Brenda on prom night, and fucking what's her name, Tipper Gore wanted to have 90210 pulled off the air. I mean, this is what our culture was like back then. You know, people weren't, you know, cool with that. So, and I'm thinking of like the restraints that Tommy Lee had to have been under to go, okay, well, is this going to pass? You know, I mean, think about how the MPAA. The Motion Picture Association rapes movies already to begin with, right? Oh, yeah, they're all, especially horror movies, they're always raping horror movies to death. Oh no, you got to cut this out. I can imagine where Tommy Lee probably wanted to go, not Tommy Lee the drummer, by the way,
Tommy Lee Wallace,
where he probably wanted to go but couldn't because of the restrictions and the restrictions of 1990 television.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent point that you bring up, and one that should be remembered when you are, if you do decide for whatever reason to compare the two movies. We'll call this a movie for all intents and purposes because it is, essentially. But you have to remember that it was made for television, and it's 1990. Right. And there were certain things that they could not do, but of course it was also conscious, creative choices as well that they made. But that's an excellent point that you bring up. A couple other scenes that I actually quite like, and it's very dated now, even more so than it was 30 years ago, is when Eddie is in the shower and Pennywise comes out of the drain. Now that is dated but very effective. It's some stop motion animation shit, and he just and the whole like thing goes like this, and he comes out, you know, and he's like, "Oh, what you doing there, Eddie?" or whatever he says, right? And it very effective, and I really like that. I like how the pipes come out of the walls, you know, and they start not the pipes, but the shower things. And I also like, I touched on it earlier in the stream, I quite like in, I believe, the second half too, when Olivia Hussey's character goes to the gas station and there's the attendant there, and you realize, oh my God, like he can totally, like, this dude can shapeshift. I mean, he's not necessarily even shapeshift. Well, he can, but he's also he can present himself as legitimate, genuine, complete other people. And here's the crazy thing, is that Olivia Hussey, her character, she wasn't there. She never experienced it as a child. Now, whether or not that was breaking the mythology in the canon, I don't know. Whether or not that was a faux pas, like how Freddie being seen at the barbecue was kind of like, what's going on here, right? I don't know, but you have to remember her character, Olivia Hussey's character, is not from Derry, I don't believe, and even though she was pretty much there already when she was getting gas, he presents himself to her, you know, and he presents himself as a gas station attendant, and, you know, and then all of a sudden, she's got the deadlights on, and he's like, "Don't you want it? Don't you want it?" And I love how he's like, "Will that be all, Mrs. Such and Such," or whatever her last name is. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not the fucking gas station. I really like that scene, and the way he looks and the way it's shot from her perspective. And then we cut back to her, and she's just kind of there like this, you know, and she's looking back, and, you know, it was such a cool little scene. Again, in 1990, I mean, imagine watching that in 1990 when it first aired. you know, and this is your first introduction to this. It's like, it's genuinely creepy. It's not frightening in the way, but you see, I would much rather, to be fair, and we'll talk about this in the coming show when we talk about the new It, but I didn't particularly find, and this has nothing to do with Bill, this is all just the creative choices, but I didn't find the, you know, at the camera in the new It particularly effective or particularly frightening.
That
you know,
sound jump scare.
It doesn't. I much find and much prefer, and maybe it's my age, but I much prefer and much find, you know. And look, it doesn't have to be Tim Curry. Bill Skarsgård could still do this. I'm just saying that I find what Curry did, what he was directed to do in that scene, more effective. Don't you want it? Don't you want it? And the eyes beginning to change, and he's just standing there. And, you know, Olivia Hussey's not moving. She's just caught in his deadlights, you know, looking, and it was genuinely frightening, you know. And again, we'll talk more about the other It later, because there are things I do like about the new It, a lot. But that's sort of that thing. I like the subtlety of the creepiness of Curry. So those are some more scenes that I genuinely like. And I think there's another one too. Well, I like when Eddie sprays this is battery acid, you slime, and sprays it on him. Eddie Spaghetti. What a great, that kid, man, was just everybody knew a kid that was weenie and dweeby and stringy beanie string, whatever the fuck I'm trying to say. That kind of a kid. He was just brilliant for that part. And I love, this is battery acid, you slime, and he sprays his little, you know, inhaler. And the way Tim Curry goes, oh, like this, and then he looks up, and it's the thumbnail on our thing. It didn't last very long, but that is a creepy fucking image. Absolutely. That he looked genuinely creepy. I mean, it's this image.
The reason why I'm sure it didn't last as long is, again, going back to 1990 television, the ratings board probably looked at him and was like, nah, dude, you got to cut that sucker down. I'm wondering if there is a longer, I'd love to see if they have any footage, and maybe give us a director's cut version of that film, It, what was cut, what wasn't used, what Tommy Lee Wallace couldn't do for television, but maybe now in 2019, could they put, I wonder, maybe they might be putting something together for the 30th anniversary here that's coming up next year.
Maybe.
Cool.
Yeah, I just put the our thumbnail image on the screen there. That image is right after Eddie, you know, sprays him with battery acid, right? Because obviously it's whatever he wants it to be, right? You know what I mean? And just the look, like that look alone, that is a genuine. I'm not comparing it to Bill. We're not doing comparisons here. I'm just that in and of itself is fucking frightening. And if I was to wake up in the middle of the night and see that like 5 inches from my face, I would literally be shitting my pants. That is a genuinely
someone doing the I'd be like, dude, I'm trying to fucking sleep. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. That might be frightening in the middle of the night too. But I know what you mean. I get the point well taken. And so there is some really cool, like there's a nice balance there. And I thought all the adult actors were good. I agree with what you said, how the, I still think the second half is weaker than the first, but I actually, as an adult now, enjoy the second half more than I have in the past. And I encourage those in the chat room that maybe sort of have that experience from a long time ago, and maybe it's been a number of years since you've seen the 1990 film, watch it again and watch the second half again. And if you're a 40-year-old guy or gal now, or you're, a bit older than you were, watch it again. I think there's a good chance that you might enjoy it more than you remember enjoying it. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying you're like, oh, it's not as, as bad. But certainly if you watch it back to back, that always helps as well too.
it's definitely a good, for me, it is always a good kickoff. Like, when, first day of autumn is rolling around here in 20 days on the 20th, 23rd, is the official day of autumn. Although for me, I always feel like this time of year is really getting me into that spirit. The movie, the 1990 movie, is always that one that I love to go to. And whether I grab the VHS tape of it or digitally, it's one of the first Halloweenish type movies that I always pop on every year, and it still holds up to this day. Yeah, sure, the CGI of the spider is very outdated, but again, when you put it into the context of 1990, you appreciate it. There's a certain charm to it,
There is, but to be fair too, even back then in 1990, the spider looked pretty fucking bad.
For sure. I'm not saying that it didn't.
Yeah.
You got to take it for what it is,
You do, and it's certainly, like, again, that's part of the weaker side of the two parts.
Sure.
But there's definitely,
when they're sitting there kicking it at the end, I'm like,
I know.
No.
I know. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot to like about it, but I think if you're going to start comparing it to the newer versions, well, I think the 1990 version, if you want to, if we are comparing it in terms of effects, if we are comparing it in terms of production value, if we are comparing it in terms of, maybe you're a 22-year-old guy or girl, or you're, 25 or whatever the case is, and you don't know anything else. I mean, by and large, you grew up in this digital age and in, this time, and but it's always going, it's not the right thing to do, to compare. You can compare it, but at the end of the day, they're very different renditions of the story. Sure. The miniseries almost plays like a fairy tale. When I say fairy tale, I don't mean like a happily ever after type of fairy tale, but there's almost like it's like a dark fairy tale. Do you know what I mean? It's not particularly scary, like downright full on blood, guts, gore scary, but it's almost like a dark, very dark fairy tale, and it's genuinely creepy. That's sort of how the 1990s film plays a bit in some regards. Sure. Now that I think about it. But yeah, I don't know. Those are my sort of overall thoughts. Anyway, any last things you want to say before we buck over to the chat room?
No, like I said, it's a movie that I can always relate to. Going back to my childhood, it was very effective in the early 90s. It was a fun, scary movie to watch. It still is. Like I said, it still holds up with that early 90s charm. Good popcorn movie, date night or something if you want to just kind of hang out, on a good, cool October night or whatever. It's just Tim Curry, like I said, it's just two of his roles that I've enjoyed the most has always been him in Rocky Horror and this with it. Right. He just knocks both performances out of the park, and it takes nothing away from Bill and what Bill did, and I'll give more of my opinion on that as the unso hidden next show that Dave and I are doing.
That's right.
We have talked about here, which is going to be the newer It this coming weekend, since that's coming out. I like it. There's certain elements to this new one that I like, but I don't think it has to do with the fact that the 1990 version was the first one I saw. I just like that version of the clown. You know what I mean? Like like I said, it reminds me of the John Wayne Gacy clown when I look at Tim Curry's clown. When I look at this one, this looks like Bill's version of. Yep. It just looks too polished, looks too Hollywood, looks too cinematic. There's nothing wrong with that, but like when I look at Tim Curry's, yes, you can say the makeup is a little bit professional. Okay, I get that part of it, but there is a sense of realism to it as far as the clown. Right. Like, the way we would envision what a clown would look like, especially back in 1990.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that.
But other than that, it's a fun, scary movie to watch. And if anyone in the chat room or stumbles across this video, even though I fucked up a lot of shit tonight, but
in terms of the names, yeah.
And I just went full on Archie Bunker tonight with the wrong names and mispronouncing words. And
don't worry, I'm sure you'll be corrected in the comment section.
Oh, I know. I expect Brandon. Brandon, that was his name.
Is that his name?
He's been correcting me for 3 years, even when I was making videos and I would mess up on names. I don't know. It could be a dyslexia thing, or I call it an Archie. If for those who have seen All in the Family, know the Archie Bunker reference, because Archie was always screwing shit up and messing up names.
And sometimes too, like, when if you've never done a live show, or you've never do videos on a regular basis, or you don't you're gonna get names wrong. I mean, you're gonna spell things backwards or say something, especially if you're not familiar with the the name on a consistent regular basis.
Right.
It's easy to criticize from behind a computer screen, for fuck's sakes. Like, fuck off. Whatever. Like, fuck. Sorry, Dad. Like, I mean, who cares?
About Halloween, we're like, yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis, and her first daughter was Danielle Harris, which is Jamie Lloyd, and then her son, played by Josh Hartnett. Right. You know what I mean? Names that I've talked about a million times over and over again. So yeah, I do apologize if you do come across this video. I know I butchered some names tonight, but it is what it is. It's part of life.
Whatever. Yeah, who cares? You do great, man. You're awesome. Who cares?
Jazz. So yeah, I'm ready for the chat.
All right, let's do it. Hey, super chat came in from Edward Moody. Says, I'm only 18, so I never experienced the 80s. You guys experienced both the 80s and the 90s. So which decade are you more nostalgic about? Ooh.
Probably the 80s, because that was my childhood. The 90s began my teenage. We were beginning our teenage years. By 92, Dave and I were teenagers. But there's a sweet spot for me. Like when I look at the ages of 10 to 13, for me, those were my favorite years, and I'm going to tell you why. Because one, you're now old enough to start appreciating like little things, like for example, Halloween, trick-or-treating, okay? You're 10 years old. You're not quite old enough to go on your own yet, but maybe you're getting chaperoned by the babysitter who's taking out the group of kids. But by the time 11 and 12 and 13 roll around, you've got about 2 to 3 years of where you're going out there trick-or-treating with your friends. And I remember the year I was 13, that was probably my favorite Halloween of trick-or-treating with friends, because we got together with about like 60 of us. We went out in this massive pack, but it started with like 20 from my neighborhood. Then we met up with another 20 from the next neighborhood. And then we met up with another 20 from the last neighborhood, and just had this massive epic trick-or-treating, night or whatever. But that's 1992. When you start to get to 93, and when I always joke and say, when you turn 14, everything goes downhill from there, because you're out of the youth. Okay, you're out of your childhood. You're an adult now. 14, you're a little bit too old to trick or treat. You can't do the Santa Claus shit with your parents anymore. You're way too old for that. Yeah. But you're not old enough to go to parties yet, so you're pretty much stuck home watching scary movies with your friends on Halloween night, and whatnot. But when you're in your youth and you don't realize, damn, it's such a short time, and the shit that you get to experience in your youth, there's sometimes I do find myself more reflective on that, that 89 to 90, 91. So I would say for me, it's more the late 80s and early 90s that I'm more nostalgia, because it's that age of innocence, that coming of age. And then when you hit 14, like I said, it's like downhill.
I think I'm going to answer it like this. I think for me, when it comes to pop culture, I'm more nostalgic about the 80s. I think when it comes to my friends and the things I experienced with my friends, I'm more nostalgic to the 90s, because, obviously we were young boys growing up through the 80s. So, there's certain things that you don't, but I think because I was a 90s teenager, I remember those years very well. Sure. So I'm very nostalgic about the times and the shit we used to get into, and that we'd go, somewhere, or, we couldn't afford to do this, so we just went and did that, or whatever the case was. And of course, that was at a time that, although the internet was starting to come into play, nobody was doing that really at the end of the day. Like I said, I didn't get my first email address until I was 19 years old. I was older than you. It's Edward. I was older than you when I got my first email address. Yeah. So, it wasn't a common thing. It was becoming more common, but it wasn't a big thing. Right. I think,
what I mean by 14 being downhill, it means more of like you're becoming an adult. The shit that you couldn't.
Sure, yeah, no, I get that.
get away with the shit that you were doing as a kid. I loved my years in junior high. High school, it was different because like the shit you were doing in grammar school and junior high, and even your friends, all changes in high school. You know what I mean? You're not hanging out with the same, I wasn't hanging out with the same group of people. It totally changed for me. It was a different group of crowds, and the shit that we were doing, we weren't doing the same. It's not that it was bad. I'm not downplaying like the high school years in the 90s. It wasn't as fun. You know what I mean? Where you were
I understand.
Adventurous and shit.
I completely understand. I completely understand, and that's all valid. So yeah, for me, it's pop culture, movies, TV shows, cartoons, maybe more music of the 90s, maybe a little bit, because I was a little bit of a late bloomer when it came to music. Now I remember all of the music in the 80s, and I certainly like certain music, but when it comes to the real movies, TV shows, cartoons, definitely the 80s. When it comes to my friends and the shenanigans and things like that, I think of the 90s. So
music for me, I definitely say 80s. I'm very heavily 80s. Obviously metal, rock, anything like that. 90s for me, it got very slim. I hung in there with Nirvana until unfortunately Kurt passed away.
Yeah.
And I got into Rob Zombie's music and White Zombie, then Rob Zombie's music. A little bit of Marilyn, not much. It was just high school for me. I have good memories and not so good memories. High school was rough. High school was not as fun, and that may be why I have I don't want to say a negative look,
right.
but it just not as a fond look. And enjoyable like it was like in grammar school and in junior high, where that was the late 80s and early 90s. Because like I said, there was no reasons, like no fallouts, but like people just like, we just all like the people that I was hanging out with in junior high, we all just kind of drifted. It was like so weird. It was like, how did we all go from being really good friends to like, we just went in all different directions and
I understand.
weren't talking to each other anymore.
Yep.
So definitely a good question though. I like that.
Great question. Frank Reiger Super Chat says, your thoughts on 90s Henry Bowers versus now? Well, I don't want to get too much into the other. I'll just say that Henry's 90s Bowers to now. I mean, we didn't talk about it, so it must not, the difference must not really be. I think the kid that plays Henry Bowers in the 2017 film, I think he did a great job.
Yeah, he was fine.
He was but I mean, a great actor. Yeah, great actor, great performance. And from what I remember in the 90s miniseries, same thing. Like it's all I think it was fine, Yeah. Zach Gaxiola says, the scene in the 2017 film where the bullies tried to kill the cat hit me more personally because I lost my pet cat 2 days earlier, so I walked out until the scene was over in the cinema. Oh, that's too bad. I feel for you, man. Totally understand. Thanks for sharing that. The J Hookmaster says, is there something from the book that should have been in the miniseries or vice versa? Well, Tony's a bit more familiar with the book than I am. So, Tony, I'll let you answer that.
But if you haven't read the book, I would encourage you to read a book because I'm a firm believer of not spoiling shit. And especially there could be other people in here who might not have read the book and will be reading the book. And I'd rather not. I don't want to spoil that for someone, even though it's a great question for you. Yeah. That could be something I can even talk with you about on Instagram. But in case if people haven't read the book, because it's such a good book, once you read it, you'll go, oh, okay, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think there's I do know that the book is much darker than the miniseries. The miniseries is very light in comparison to the book. That I do know. You pick one there, Tony.
Yeah, but first you got to delete Devontae.
Oh, is he back?
Yeah.
Oh, he's
back.
What a life the character
the
must
dork
live.
is back. The loser is back. He really is a dork. I mean, seriously, if you look at his photos, good God, man. I mean, there's some dorky people in this world. Let me tell you something. Eddie from It is cooler than Devontae.
Yeah, I think what's so sad is just that, and I'm not making excuses.
Oh no, the gloves are off with Devontae now.
But I think it's just
pushing it, and the gloves are off.
I think it's just sad. Well, what I'd like to do is not give him any airtime. And when he just comes into the room, if you see him come into the room, you just let me know and I'll get rid of him.
Yeah. Frank Riker, your top 3 movie scores. So I guess this is a broad range question and not just horror themed.
Okay. Well, I would say top 3 movie scores. Well, if I had to choose, I would probably say, in no particular order, I gotta say, oh fuck. Score. So okay. So wait.
That's a hard question.
We're talking about like the main theme of the movies.
He's talking like the actual scoring. So like,
well, no, but
Wars, like,
well, yes, but there's many different scores, right? Like, are we talking about the title theme, or are we talking about, because there's
the whole movie, like the soundtrack score, or is he talking about like the yeah, Frank, verify that. Like, are you talking about it's like the Star Wars theme?
Like the main theme, or right? Or are we talking about the entire soundtrack? Like, we could pick something from the soundtrack, like the Imperial March, or whatever the case is, right? Just put an @ Frank. Just put @
opening. Okay. So
opening. So a main theme. Okay, well, I would say that I would say top 3 for me, definitely probably Indiana Jones. That main theme. Superman's got to be on there. Yeah, for me, that's fucking amazing. And then
I gotta say Halloween for sure.
Yeah,
because I do play the Halloween theme, that theme very frequently. That is on my rotation every month.
Yeah. It
Star
may not
Wars
be on mine.
Too.
It may not be on mine. Funny enough, the Star Wars theme is not my favorite out of all the Star Wars pieces of music. My favorite, no. I like it. I like
yours? Can I take a guess?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna say I'm gonna do 2 here. You are either a Duel of the Fates or Empire Strikes Back theme. One of the 2. You're one of those 2.
Well, you are close. I do love Duel of the Fates.
Duel of the Fates is really good.
Fucking amazing. I would say that my favorite Star Wars theme is the Imperial March.
It's close.
That is, I mean, that's just one of the most iconic. It's just a brilliant. But there's so many, like even John Williams did such, like the prequels. The prequels soundtracks are fucking amazing. Put Duel of the Fates aside. Listen to the soundtrack of Attack of the Clones. Brilliant. Listen to the soundtrack of Revenge of the Sith. Oh my God. Brilliant. My favorite piece of music from the new films, although not as recognizable. I don't know what's happened there. I don't know if Williams lost his touch. It's his old age. I don't know what's going on. But one of my favorite themes from the new trilogy would be Rey's theme. I think Rey's theme is really cool.
That is a beautiful theme.
And the Jedi steps it's on the Force Awakens soundtrack. It's towards the end. It's when Rey is walking up the steps to see Luke. That's a great piece of music too. But anyway, so I gotta say Indiana Jones.
I'm not laughing at what you said. I'm laughing at the super chat from Frank.
Frank is amazing. Frank is one of the wittiest, savage supporters I have. He's just great. I love Frank. I love it. It's just great. I would say that Indiana Jones, Superman, maybe Imperial March. And I know people are like, you didn't put Halloween on there. Well, yeah, but if you gave me a top 5, it might be on there, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. It might change. Halloween is amazing. It's fucking amazing.
See, the thing is,
it's so hard.
I'm looking at, like, for example, like on my Spotify playlist, my top 3 most played soundtracks are Halloween theme, Nightmare on Elm Street theme, the opening credit theme. That was a horrible example of the medley or melody, and Jaws. Those are actually my most replayed. Wow, I didn't realize that.
There you go. Yeah,
Learn
Jaws
something
is
about
great.
myself. But
is great.
Jaws is really great. The Halloween theme is great. If we were going to narrow this down into horror, it probably would be the Halloween theme, Nightmare on Elm Street theme, and probably The Exorcist, Tubular Bells.
Yeah, that's good shit. Let me see here. Andrew L says, do you guys have a horror movie that you watched with your family multiple times that truly frightened you? Well, I'm going to say no. Because
Yeah, I have it because they don't watch it with me.
that's what I'm just going to say. I'd never watch horror movies with my family.
Yeah.
So, and when I was a kid, I come from a broken home. Like my parents divorced, as Tony's did too, right? Your parents, I think, divorced when we were about I was 4 or 5. So I used to watch them on my own, and so I can't. Now there are movies that my mom really liked that I did eventually go. Like my mom really liked The Others. She thought that was cool. My mom loved the original Halloween. But I can't say there was any sort of a horror movie that I'd sit and watch with my family, traditions. No, unfortunately I don't have a very close family.
Yeah.
There's nobody wrong. Like I don't have any animosity towards anybody in my family. We're just not a very close family. And ironically enough, after the death of my parents, it didn't actually bring us any closer. Funny enough,
I'm in the same exact boat as you. It's yeah. I say this to my parents all the time that I said, you realize when you guys go, even though I have a brother and a sister, we never talk. Ever. It's just the way it is. It's just, there's no like hard feelings. There's no like hatred or anything. It's just, we're not like, for example, the girl that I do a lot of my photo shoots with, Ariel, that she's featured a lot. She's like a little sister to me. Really, right. She really is. We text each other. She's very supportive in the work that I'm doing. Like she's this, and I've always said this, blood doesn't necessarily mean family. You know what I mean? Right. Of course. You end up finding family, out there in life, just 100%. And it naturally happens. So it's not necessarily means, your DNA has to match in order to be family. And it just is what it is. And like Dave said, we're similar when it comes to that. It's not a bad thing. It's not like, we're like, like this white trash, like, broken down. It just, Well, as the old saying goes, there's a big difference between, and this is just a saying, obviously, but there's a big difference between being a father and a dad. Anybody can be a father, but very few. But we need more real good dads in the world. Let's see here. Super chat from Rick Michaels. Thank you, Rick. Much appreciated. Says, do you have a favorite Tim Burton movie? Mine is Sleepy Hollow or Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd, really? Sweeney Todd's a good movie. Sleepy Hollow is a good movie too.
Sleepy Hollow is very good. My favorite Tim Burton movie. I'm not a big. You know what Tim Burton movie I quite liked? And I saw it in the theater. It's probably about 15 or 16 years old now. I actually quite liked it. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's just think off the top of my head. I was trying to think of something different. Is Big Fish.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of cool. But, and a lot of people forget Tim Burton did not direct The Nightmare Before Christmas.
That's true. They think he did because it has that Tim Burton look, but he didn't.
Yeah, he did. It did.
For me, it would be with Beetlejuice. It's I like Batman. Don't get me wrong, I do. But yeah, Beetlejuice. I actually just watched that not too long ago here. We got to get that into the rotation.
We do.
Point.
Well, I just got as often sometimes viewers, I should say, will send me stuff to my P.O. box. And today I got a nice little thing from a Rob Karma. He wants to be called Rob Karma. I gave him a little shout out on my social media. Thank you so much, Rob. And he sent me up just a little box of a couple of things. And one of the things he sent me, speaking of Beetlejuice, is this little guy right here. Pretty cool stuff.
That's cool. That's cool.
He almost looks like, you can look at this and not even think of Beetlejuice. He just looks like a punk rocker or something. Hey man, what's going on? Ow! Thanks, Rob. Much appreciated. You rock, buddy. Let's see here. Super chat from Jim Dorsey. Oh, Devon has a neon fanny pack. You guys are hilarious. What's that, Tony?
ACDC 1130889. Tony, I asked Dave this the other day. What is your favorite movie from the year you were born? Now, here's I'm gonna give myself a little because if you do the math, okay, technically I was in the process of developing at the time, okay, because if you look at it, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. That's eight months had passed. So technically, my mom would have been 1 month pregnant with me when the original Halloween came out in '78. And technically, back then, the theatrical runs tend to, and Halloween, as Yerwin has always said in the documentaries, it didn't become a success overnight. It took some time. So, and it probably wasn't until '79 when they really started to see right after a few months of it being out. Technically, that was our birth year, so I'm going to go with the original Halloween.
So what Tony is implementing here, ladies and gentlemen, is a classic Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi from a certain point of view. All right, okay, all right. There you have it, folks. There you have it. Let's see here. Zach Axiola says, do you think the It miniseries could have been a box office success if it was released in theaters as an actual film? I don't know. Maybe not. As is right now, I don't know. I think if it had been prepped to be released as a theatrical major motion picture, I think that they would have had the leeway to do more. And there would have been leeway to go a bit darker and make things a bit scarier and things like that. So it would have made maybe a little bit of money. It might have made its production budget back. But it might not have been as successful, perhaps, because of... but I don't know. I mean, as is, I'm going to say maybe, but maybe not. Yeah. But if it was set up to be a theatrical release, then some of the things that they couldn't do or didn't have the money to do or couldn't do because of the television and... Because, I mean, it aired in prime time. I mean, it aired at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and so, I mean, on like a Sunday. Like families were watching this shit, so I mean, whether they should have been or not is a whole other thing. So I think that if it had been given the opportunity to breathe as a theatrical major motion picture, I think it might have gone a bit darker and maybe we would have seen something a bit different. But that's a good question. But as is, I don't know. That might be tricky.
Yeah. Kenny525, I know you asked me this a couple times here, so I want to get it answered for you, bro. Would I ever consider doing a Jeepers Creepers photo shoot? A man in Troy Jackson lives in Georgia and owns a he owns a screen-used creeper truck and has the wicked... man. Here's the thing with that.
And didn't the movie take place down in Georgia or something like that, or somewhere around there?
Close, yeah. God, I want to do this so bad, but because of what's attached to this movie, I'm afraid of any type of negative backlash on social media. People thinking that I'm promoting child abuse and child molestation and things like that, which is what the director did. Believe me, guys, this has been one of those ones that I have talked with a lot of people about. Because you have to understand something. Like, I have clients who follow me on, my social media that watch this stream with Dave and I. And in 2019, I don't know what type of reaction I'm going to get. And you have to like walk on eggshells, which really freaking sucks, because you shouldn't take away someone's freedom of creativity. And that character that was made up for the movie has nothing to do with what the director did. But I'm just afraid because of the I'm offended era that we're in right now that I could get some backlash on it, which sucks.
Right. No, I understand that. I think, some
how
people
would you handle that on your side, if you were, just curious, how would you handle it?
Well, let me see here. I want to confirm something here. Let me just see. Let me go to this here. Victor Salva. Let me just do this. That's right. He did Powder as well.
Yeah.
Let me just see here.
Easy. I agree with you 100%. Separate the art from the artist. I agree, but unfortunately, there's just people out there who can't. That's the problem.
No, and it was written by Victor Salva as well. See, I was looking to see if it was written by him, whether or not he is the creator, he is the Don Mancini of The Creeper, and it looks like he is. You see, if he was just the director, if he was just hired to direct, you could say, well, yeah, he's the director of the movie, but he didn't create the character, therefore, you could have that separation. I mean, at the end of the day, depending on the situation, I think it is important that we don't lose sight of being able to separate art from, reality. I think that is important. However, there may be certain instances in life where that is extremely difficult to do. And when you do work in a certain industry, it can, there are people that just, may not like it, may not like to see it. But at the end of the day, it depends on how, it comes down to a personal choice of the matter. If it were me, like if I was asked to, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's something I'd have to think more about. It's
a tough question. It really is, because it's one that I have seriously thought about heavily on, and I don't know how to approach it, because now even I had a feeling he was the one. I knew he directed it. I thought he wrote it as well too, which means he created this character, which means his name is going to be attached to it no matter what.
Right. Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to do, and it requires more. It's the kind of question that requires more of a lengthy answer and thought. Like, we could do a whole show about that. Like, that's the thing, where it's hard to answer that sufficiently in a soundbite, or in even just a couple of minutes talking about it. So maybe Tony and I will talk about it, maybe like that kind of thing, not necessarily the movies per se, but the dichotomy of that on a future show. But who knows? We'll see.
Meanwhile, in the meantime, you got to delete me from the chat room, because Devontae signed back in under, he's using my name, which is
is he?
ridiculous. So I've got to be deleted from the chat, guys. Hold on.
All right. Hang on a sec. Yeah, he did that with me the other day as well. He's hilarious. There you go.
So in the meantime,
he's gone. In the meantime, and in between time, he is gone. Yeah, he's so funny. He's a fucking turd. Anyway, so let's see.
Show on the idiocy of Devontae.
Oh God, I would never do that. Are you kidding? I don't want to give that guy any airtime.
Scott Mariano, Dave and Tony, are you guys fans of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies? They really screwed up with the third one with cramming in all the villains. I do agree with that, and it's definitely overkill. And don't forget about the stupid Titanic ending. I'll never let go. I'll never let go. Like, that's literally, they should have been saying those lines.
I know. I gotta say, I am a fan. I'm a big fan of the first two. The third one is definitely a step down, but it's too bad that they never went on to do the fourth, because Sam Raimi was on board. The studio didn't want them to do what Raimi wanted to do, so he left. And when Sam Raimi left, Tobey Maguire left. And it's do I agree that they jammed way too many characters in there? 100%. Yep. There's definitely issues with Spider-Man 3, but it wasn't so bad. It didn't jump the shark completely that warranted never continuing the series.
No, because I would have loved to have seen them go down the road with Toby and James.
Right.
Frank.
Right, because I think Sam Raimi is a smart enough, talented enough filmmaker that he would have known at that time, okay, we tried this. It wasn't all bad, right? It wasn't all bad. There's some cool things in that movie, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't the follow-up we needed, especially from Spider-Man 2, which up until recently, because of Marvel, of course, and a lot of the great movies that they have, Spider-Man 2 is considered one of the greatest superhero comic book movies in motion picture history. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that feel that way, and it is a great sequel. So following it up, that's a high bar to follow up. So when you look at Spider-Man 3, it's like, but it wasn't so bad. I mean, I know there's the dancing scene with Tobey Maguire. It's a little cheesy. But at the end of the day, I think because Raimi was coming back, it almost is like give him the chance to fix this. You know what I mean? And deliver a fourth installment that we go, okay, no, that's better. Now, maybe the fourth installment is still not as good as part 2, but that's a really high bar. But as long as the fourth installment was better than part 3 and more, and it's like, I think the fans would have been like, okay, now we're back on track. Okay, this is good. Still not as good as part 2, but because the bar was relatively low with part 3, if he delivers just a solid Spider-Man 4, just really good film, then I think then we're back, right? We're back and kicking. And the fact that he wasn't allowed or given the opportunity to do that is, now there's reasons why, okay? Box office performance is one, critical reception,
Sure.
not liking the creative choices that Raimi was kind of bringing. There's a multitude of reasons, but it's unfortunate because I think Raimi is smart enough that he would have corrected the mistakes. Yep. And when he left, Maguire left. And then it's like, now we're, and then we are where we are. So, yeah.
Yes.
Great question. Robert Thidoff, Super Chat, says, next show idea, Jaws 3 versus Jaws 4. We are definitely going to be talking about Jaws soon. I don't know if we'll talk about 3 of them, but yeah. Or the, I don't know if we'll talk about, yeah, exactly. We might just talk about 1 and 2. Brandon Barry, Super Chat, says, do you like the Joker not having an origin story? Do you like the Joker not having an origin story? Here's the thing that I love about this idea of the Joker. This is a character study. They're using the Joker as the archetypal character to tell a story like this. He's the Joker. He's the clown, right? He's the fool. They're using this character to tell this kind of a story. There are other archetypal, stereotype villains in cinema and in stories that they could have used. They didn't have to use the Joker, right? Because it's supposed to be a standalone film. Now, whether it ends up being or not, who knows? But that's how they approach it. This is a one and done. This is it. So we're going to use the Joker, and don't kid yourself, they're using this character to get your fucking ass in the theater. And you know what? It's going to work. It's great marketing. It's not just like, we'll just use the Joker. No, it was, let's use the Joker. 100% that's what they're doing. But it's not following any sort of current mythology as far as my understanding is. It's not based on a book, a comic, a cartoon, or anything like that. Even the name Arthur Fleck, as far as I know, I think is original, created for this film, as far as I know. Although I do stand to be corrected. But what this is, it's a character study on this character, and this is very
excited.
Yeah, it's not a Batman movie, right? It's not a Batman movie. It's not an action movie. It doesn't mean there won't be, a little bit of action in it. But they're just using the Joker, the archetype of the Joker character, to tell a story like this. They could have used a lot of different archetypal characters to tell this kind of a story. They chose the Joker to do it. And yes, it really excites me. So that's how you have to look at this movie, right? It's not connected to anything. You have to look at
Robert Pattinson.
Right. Yeah. You just look at it. Although the Batman movie is supposed to be connected to the DCEU, but I think that is going to change. I just have a feeling.
Because the way, and I'm getting more excited because I just saw a Variety video where Pattinson was talking about it, for the first time, publicly talking about playing Matt Reeves' Batman. And it's that approach of the detective style of Batman. Right. Which we have never seen before. And it's the same thing like what you just talked about with the architect character type of the Joker.
Yeah, right.
Haven't seen this before. That's what gets me super excited about these two films and the direction that they're taking these characters. It's breathing new life into these characters that we've all grown up with. Look, at the end of the day, we're all going to have a special place in our heart for Jack and for Heath.
Course,
you know what I mean?
And
for Michael Keaton. I lean towards Keaton, but I know there's a lot of Christian Bale fans, and there's nothing wrong with either. Whatever side of the fence you choose, 100%. There's nothing wrong with it. But with Joaquin and with what eventually we're going to get from Pattinson and Matt Reeves films with the Batman and the Joker, this is something different and also something very exciting. And very much, look, I don't get excited for comic book anything related, but these two films I'm very excited to see because of the direction, like Dave, you just described there so perfectly and adequately, of the Joker film, because it's something very new and fresh.
Yeah, it's a character. It just, like, again, just keep in mind that it just so happens to be they're using the Joker as the catalyst to tell a story about a man with mental illness who falls at the hands of society. But they're using the character of the Joker to tell that story.
That's very interesting, and I like that.
And that's really interesting. And so that excites me. But if you think you're going in to see this great backstory and there's going to be all these Easter eggs, and now that doesn't mean that they're not going to have certain things connecting to because you can't use the Joker character without placing it in Gotham or without having, sure, exactly. But you're not going to have. I don't believe you're going, because I think we would have known by now, especially the fact that there's 30-something, reviews about it. You're not going to have many Easter eggs setting up a larger universe. This is what a lot of people.
Presence, I'm talking like the Wayne family. That's what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is a character study. This is, as a lot of people have alluded to, this is Travis Bickle and Taxi Driver. This is what this is, but with Joker. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. My girlfriend, who loves these kind of movies, she's looking forward to seeing it. So we're definitely going to go see it together for sure.
There's a good chance Dave and I will probably do a show on this.
I think there's a good chance we'll do a show on it. The
probability is pretty good.
I think you're right. Super chat Frank Riker says D&T. Every time you say D&T, I think of some sort of like hallucinogen drug or something.
Like Dunkin' Donuts. And...
Oh, there you go. Yeah. D&T, would you be Magnum PI or Michael Knight? Ooh.
None of the above. My show during that, and I take nothing away from what Magnum was and Knight Rider as well too. But my show, and I actually got the DVDs now, was
the A-Team?
No. Airwolf.
Oh, Airwolf. Right, Airwolf.
As a kid, I when I finally got the whole the series on DVD. Yeah. Oh, but as a kid during that whole run, because you have to remember, like Airwolf, A-Team, Knight Rider, that's all pretty right around at the same time. It's not like I did not like the A-Team. I did watch the A-Team and I did watch Knight Rider, but I was like massive into fucking Airwolf.
I would say between those two, as a kid, I was a Knight Rider fan. And I didn't really watch. I did watch Magnum PI, but I loved the whole kit in the car and how it Michael, and talks and shit, and turbo boost and shit. Like what kid didn't like that, right? Sorry.
Wait, Kit, Mr. Feeney.
Yes, he did. Boy Meets World.
Feeney.
I know, but yeah. So I would say I'd probably be.
Call.
I would say I'd probably be Michael Knight, although I wouldn't mind strutting around in a Hawaiian shirt on an island solving crimes.
I would love for a cinematic universe of Knight Rider and Airwolf. I really would. There's so many ways that you could create those two into an actual movie and have them as part of one cinematic universe.
Right. That'd be funny. Frank Recker follows up with send money to Trump to build the wall around Devontae. That's great. I'm going to build a great wall. It's going to be an amazing wall. It's going to be high. Devontae won't be able to come in. It's going to be great. Okay, I'm just going to do it. All right, let's do it now. Let's budget for it. Send the money. We'll build it. It's going to be great. Big wall, the greatest wall, the highest wall. It's going to be great.
How's that hurricane, Trump?
The hurricane's magnificent. It's a wonderful hurricane. It's absolutely amazing. Dorian is splendid. I love the strength. She's really strong. It's really great. I just love it, okay? Can you imagine if he tweeted something like that? I love the hurricane. It's just amazing. Strong hurricane. We need more people like that in Congress. Strong. Very strong.
Yeah.
I would genuinely be like, that is... how can you think that's not amazing? I love the hurricane. Just amazing. It's like, Donald, you can't be talking about how much you love... excuse me, Mr. President, you can't be tweeting about how much you love the hurricane. But if this hurricane, it's just so strong. I love strength.
Oh, boy.
That'd be so amazing. I should do the whole show one time as Donald Trump. Hello, we are live. Okay. Super chat just came in here from Dreedmem77. Dave, Tony, thoughts on Killing of a Sacred Deer. It's a great A24 film that never gets mentioned. I've never heard of this movie. Have you heard about it?
I haven't heard of it either. I am gonna check it out.
I'm definitely going to check it out. Thank you for the super chat, supporting the channel. Much appreciated in the show, and for the suggestion. Anything by A24, I'm definitely interested in. Robert Thidoff follows up with thoughts if they remade Basic Instinct. I think you would have a hard time remaking Basic Instinct today, because I think there's something about Basic Instinct that might it would almost fall into the, 50 Shades category. Not quite to that degree, but there's something a little hokey now about it. It's hard to make. It's really hard to make.
For its time, it was huge. Everybody was that. Remember that scene? That's how they would refer to it. They wouldn't talk about it back in the early 90s. It would be that scene. It would be the infamous crossing of legs where you see Sharon Stone's magnificent, glorious pie. You know what? I got to tell you, even to this day, I would. She still looks amazing. I don't care. She's older, but I would.
Sharon, if you're watching.
I would in a freaking heartbeat.
Sharon, if you're watching, 555 Tony. That's what it is. 555 Tony. Sounds like a fucking pizza place.
But you remember that back in the day, that's how people would talk about it. They wouldn't say.
Oh, yeah.
It would be too you can't say what they're talking about. Oh, yeah. That scene.
Yep, I remember. And but I think like the story of Basic Instinct today would be hard to sell seriously to today's audiences. And I think it would be kind of cheesy in some. Maybe not. Maybe they can make it a real great psychosexual thriller. I mean, I don't know, but I think it may be, 50 Shades was, it was a real, that's extreme. Basic Instinct was not like that, but it might be hard to sell it today. I think those kinds of movies are tough. They usually wind up just on Netflix and you're like, oh, what's this? You know what I mean? It might be hard today, but I like the original movie a lot.
Cool.
Let's see here. Ethan LeBlanc says, "Stay sharp, gents." Thank you, Ethan. Much appreciated. Super chat quickly from Frank Riker. T&D, best 80s cartoon villain for me, Skeletor.
Crap. I'm trying to think like what cartoons that because like.
Come on, Tony, you boob.
I probably have to go. Not Soundwave. Soundwave from Transformers.
Oh, okay.
Not little boombox thing. Like he was my favorite. He was my favorite. It could have gone Megatron.
Was he a villain? Oh, okay, yeah.
I could have gone Megatron. I could have gone Starscream. But I fucking love Soundwave. Soundwave was just so badass back in the day. I have to go with him for sure. I don't know if anybody was a fan of Transformers in the chat, but. If you were, who was your favorite? I know a lot of people love Megatron, and I know a lot of people love Soundwave.
Soundwave,
isn't it? Was like the second in command to Megatron, but Soundwave.
Okay.
Yeah, and they. Oh my God, that's the one thing that fucking pissed me off about the new Transformers. They did not do his character justice at all. I fucking hated that.
Billy, yeah. The fuck was that?
Let's see here.
The fuck was that? Hey! Alex G says, hey, you guys feel like you don't show enough love to Creepshow. It's an 80s classic. Could even do a show on it. Yeah, I like Creepshow, but I was never a huge fan of Creepshow. And I think that's why I don't talk about it a lot. Tony?
Same. Are you talking about Romero's Creepshow? Or is that what you're talking?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the little shorts with like Ted Danson and Liam Neeson and King.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I like those. Well, no, I got distracted because there's someone I want to respond to in the chat. A question that and I don't want to lose because the chat keeps scrolling here. And I'm
Sure. Yeah. No problem.
lose the spot. But yeah, as far as that goes, I mean, I wouldn't mind. I think if we were going to get into the Romero category, there's other films that I think we'd probably talk about first, like Dead, obviously, would be first on the list. But see, I love crazies, and I really like Season of the Witch. But yes, he did a movie called Season of the Witch. A lot of people don't know that back in the 70s. And I'm a big, those two, Crazies and Season, are some of my favorite Romero films, or flicks, I should say.
Cool.
So yeah.
All right, we'll go to 9:15. We'll go another 10 minutes.
So what's his name here? The Artisan. Oh my God, you guys keep talking about remakes. I've already wrote the horror movie that y'all have been waiting for and have been teasing it on my Insta for over a year now, but Dave and Tony keep ignoring me. So okay, I'm gonna give you your moment here, bro. Okay, and I'm gonna challenge you on this in a positive way. Okay. I have seen you tag me and Dave in these posts, but I'm not seeing anything. You show it. You know what I mean? Like, you keep talking about it. I'm one of those people, like, if you've got something, either make it yourself, get out there and put a short together, or well, really, that would be the only way to do it. Because, I mean, yeah, you could read a script and look at it, and without seeing the visual context of something, it's really hard. With the way technology, dude, you can make a great short on a film or on your iPhone or whatever. You know what I mean? You can get a group of friends to look at what I'm doing with my group of friends, you know, and the photos that we're doing. You can create this. I know you've been doing this for a really long time and promoting this like epic script that you have. But saying you have something and not actually doing it are two different things. You know what I mean? I'm a person of action. I want to see the action. You know, I will have more respect for you as an artist by putting yourself out there and putting the content out there. Saying you don't want to do it because you're afraid that the studio might steal your ideas, that's a cop-out. I'm just being honest with you. And it's tough love and it's harsh love, but it is a cop-out. Let's see it. And I'm sure me and Dave, if it's good enough, I'm sure me and Dave would talk about it. But we're not ignoring you, dude. There's just no context there for us to talk about.
Well, to be fair, I'm not familiar with this.
Yeah, because I know you're new to Instagram and you're not on there every day like I am.
No, I'm not. And you know, people have to. And I only speak for myself. I am not here. I'm not going to say what I'm about to say as. I'm not saying it because I think it's I don't know if it's a lot. I'm just able to talk about my own experiences with social media, and I receive a lot of messages. I've been on Instagram for about a month or so, maybe 4 or 5 weeks, and I have over 250 messages. 250 messages. People just messaging me. And I average about 30 or 40 a day on Facebook. It's nearly impossible. Literally, I'm not exact. That's not hyperbole. And I try to read as many as I can, but obviously it's very difficult to do that. It's hard to get back to everyone. I'm stunned that many people want to reach out. And a lot of people just say, hey man, you know, love your shit, keep it up. But then other people, it's more lengthy and long. I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with your name. I have seen you in the chat before, but I'm not familiar with your project. It's not personal. If you have a great... No, not at all. I don't know you. I think it's wonderful that you feel you have something special. I think that's great. But what I think you need to do is you need to finish your script to a point, at least to a point where you feel content with it. Keep in mind that scripts always change. And I unfortunately, I can't read your script. And the reason why I can't read it is not because I don't believe that you might not have something special. It's because if I read yours, I have to read everybody's.
Right.
How
would we be able to talk about it without actual visual context?
Well, it's just I don't have time to do that. So I don't have time to do it. So but my advice to you is to get it, you know, to where you think you need, where you're happy with it. Then the first thing you do is you register it with the WGA, which is the Writers Guild of America. It's going to cost you a little bit, but you know, it's not going to cost you like, you know, $5,000 or anything. Sorry?
Protecting it.
Yeah, absolutely. So therefore it's protected. Your script is protected. Okay. Copyright protected. Now you can register it. I think copyright protection lasts, I think it's about 5 years, something like that. And then you have to re-register. And then that's what you do. But register your script as a final copy. Don't prematurely register it, and then continue to work on it, because then if it changes drastically, the script that's registered is very different from your final script, and then that could be a legal loophole there. So, and then you do that. And then what you do is you start, maybe you start making some phone calls, you start making some emails, and you send out, some emails to people that maybe sometimes there are groups have people, that's their job. Maybe there are screenwriting competitions. Yep. There are screenwriting events. There are people you can send your script to or get involved with, and it's not just you. It's everybody, and everybody wants to protect their ideas, and their you can't copyright an idea, but you can copyright a story and characters and things like that. And that's the way to go. Is to try to sort of maneuver in that direction, and look into those types of things. But I can't, if you think you have something special and great, I think that's wonderful. But at the end of the day, you have to, and that's something Tony brings up a really good point, is, raise a little bit of money and maybe take a scene from your script, or a moment or a scene, and shoot it as a concept piece, and then use that concept piece.
Lights out.
Right, there you go. Yeah, look at Lights Out. Look at what the director did with Lights Out. That was a short little film.
2 minutes.
Right. And look what happened. Now he's a major motion picture Hollywood director. He did Annabelle Creation, I believe. He did Shazam. He did the official theatrical release of Lights Out. Yep. Right? So it's just, just saying you have an idea, that's wonderful. But there's a lot of people that have a lot of great ideas. There's nothing proprietary about what you have. You think there is, but there's a lot of wonderful people that have a lot of great ideas. And it's a tough business. I think just and
that's what the part right there, what you just said, you're going to hear no, dude. And believe me, you cannot take it personally, but we are in a day and age where, like Dave just said, and what I said, you can film it on, look at Lights Out. Look at the low budget that Sandberg did with that short, 2 to 3 minutes in length, and it turned into a feature film. If your idea is that concrete and you're getting rejected left and right, and you have to be prepared, that's what's going to happen. Yeah. Get an iPhone, get a group of people, and make, like Dave said, take a scene out and make it short.
Like, you have to understand that if you were to send your script to me and I was to read it, I can't give you exposure on my channel without exposing your script, and that's not what you want, especially if it's not copyrighted.
Exactly.
And so it's important that you write it, you get it to where you need to be, you copyright it, you register it with the WGA, you can register it here in Canada as well. Like I can write a script here in Canada, and I can register it with the Writers Guild of Canada. I forget what, it's not the Writers Guild of Canada, but something else. It's the Copyright Office of Canadian such and such. We have longer, ridiculous names, but you can register it here too. You can register it in the States. You can register it overseas. Registering it once should be fine, but sometimes people do it just to cover their, basis, and then start looking for ways to give it some exposure. But until that's done, there's not much, there's not much that can be done, and there's certain avenues to go with. So that would be my advice to you, is to do that. But I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I didn't even know. I didn't even know you were tagging me and shit. So my apologies for that. I was not ignoring you. But that would be my the ballpark advice anyway, at the very least. There's a lot of wonderful competitions out there, like how there's film festivals for films. There's those kinds of things for screenplays.
Scripts.
Yeah, there are. They're out there. So look at
go for it, dude. I mean,
go for it. Fuck, go, absolutely go for it, man. Fucking do it. You say you got something, you fucking go for it. I'm pulling for you.
There you go.
All right, we'll go to 9:30.
Fine by me. Dave, Aaron asked, did you see his new, on a super chat? Thanks for the super chat, by the way. Did you see his new Freddy mask on Instagram?
Aaron's new Freddy mask? No, I did not, Aaron. Okay. For those of you that follow me on Instagram, be patient with me. I'm still new to Instagram. I'm only beginning to tweet now more on a regular basis. I know I'm not posting on Instagram a lot. It's because I'm not a big social media guy, so I have to remember to do those things. So I appreciate your patience. I think I have over 1,000 followers now in a month, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even posting anything. So unfortunately, I didn't see that, but I will go check it out. That's cool, Aaron. Aaron's a great, for those of you that don't know, he's a great Freddy cosplayer. So I will definitely.
He is. He's a very good Freddy cosplayer.
Yeah. Grave Warmer says, rather own original Rambo or Halloween knife. Oh, rather own original Rambo or Halloween knife. Like from the movie, like Scream, I would probably.
Damn, that's tough. Because that Rambo knife is fucking legit. That's a legit knife. That's like Dundee saying, that ain't a knife. This is a knife.
Well, funny enough, the knife in the original Rambo is actually not that big. It gets bigger in the sequel. Looking. Oh, badass looking. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd probably go Rambo.
Same here, because that is a badass knife.
Yeah, it is pretty fucking incredible. Let me see here.
Did you get all the super chats?
Oh, let me see. I didn't get this one. Southpaw 82. Thank you, Southpaw. One film I want to be remade is Swamp Thing. Yeah, weren't they?
I thought they were doing that already.
I thought that was a
like no. Tyler Mane was the Swamp Thing guy too, right? Wasn't he?
What didn't they just do a series that was canceled before it even launched its first episode or something like that? Was that?
Yes, I thought that might be the one that I'm thinking of.
Maybe that is the one you're thinking of.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy shit. And then Frank Riker, super chat, just a super chat because I like you twos. Thanks, Frank. Much appreciated. And, super chat from Nick says, seen King's miniseries Storm of the Century. Never heard of it. Interesting. Have you heard of that?
Interesting. Nope.
Steven, I'll have to check that out. Thank you, Nick. Much appreciated. And yes, okay. I think I've covered all the super chats.
Kenny525. Hey, David, Tony, if you can own any screen use prop, what would it be? Oh, I actually own a screen use prop. It's up there. And I use it in my photo shoots. It's the Scream, the original Scream. One of the hero knives that were used. It's a real knife, probably used for close-ups. It's not a retracting knife, so they obviously didn't stab it because, like I said, it's real. Yes. But hold on, I'll grab it.
He's grabbing it. He's grabbing it.
This bad boy here in its casing. It's so dope.
Awesome.
I love this thing.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's...
Now, do you know what Scream...
Oh, I can't hear you. Oh. Before I stabbed myself, that would have sucked.
You're bleeding all over the place.
What were you saying?
Do you know which Scream that was used in?
The first one. This is from the first Scream. So, yeah, baby.
Very cool.
So yeah, so I do own it, and I got it from a private person here in Atlanta. It was through one of the people who made that mold for me, the Ghostface mold from the original one, which I got from the Father Death costume, because that's the actual Scream costume that was used, that Wes Craven used back in the 90s. That's what it was called. It was called. Hold on, I'll show you that.
He's busting out. He's busting out the juicy shit.
Father Death. That's the Father Death costume.
Nice.
So that's the glittery. Wait, the reason why I don't use the robe in my photo shoots because it looks like a freaking giant disco ball. It's way too glittery. So what I had the person who made that for me do is make a replica of the robe based off of the Father Death robe. So it had more of that black sheen look that you see in my photos. Because the robe itself that they use from the Father Death, it looks like a freaking disco ball, and it didn't photograph right. So I wanted to go more the black route because of the way I color grade and the style of my photography. So
okay, cool.
What would you own if you could own any screen use props?
Screen use prop. What would I own? Well, just off the top of my head, maybe the original. Or one of, because obviously they used a few. I mean, I don't know. There's probably a lot, but I would love to. It would be cool to have an original Raiders of the Lost Ark fedora that he used in Raiders. Because, and the reason why I say Raiders specifically is because in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the crown on the fedora is much taller than it is in the subsequent sequels. If you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones film, it was a very specific type of fedora that they don't make a lot of anymore. And I think by the time Temple of Doom came around, it was a difficult thing to even get. So although the average person's not going to notice, the fedora in Temple of Doom looks fine as well, but the crown is not as tall. And there's something about, even though Temple of Doom is my favorite of the Indiana Jones movies, Raiders is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a fucking magnificent film. There's something about the fedora in Raiders which is pretty fucking cool, and that would be fucking cool to have. Most people might say, I'd like the bullwhip. Yeah, that would be cool, but the fedora would be really cool.
Yeah, because you can rock that. You could go. Actually, if you were dressed up in a nice suit going out with your girl for a night, you could totally rock that shit.
Ooh, I could, but damn, if anything ever happened to it, oh my God. People are like, you're literally wearing an original Harrison Ford Raiders of the Lost. Yeah, what the fuck's the problem?
Exactly. That's how Dave rolls.
But I think, because obviously they have like 10 or 12 fedoras for, those films, right? I think one of them from the Raiders film, I think one of them at the very least is at the Smithsonian, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, pretty cool shit. That would be cool to have. A couple super chats came in. Patman Fishin 89 says, thanks for taking the time out to do this. Hey, no problem. Thanks for the support, buddy. Really appreciate it. Let's see here. Brandon Gregory says, super chat says, was it wise to remove the child orgy scene from it? Ooh, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. In this day and age.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
In the PC culture that we're in, yeah, they can't. Yeah.
Well, and legally they wouldn't be allowed to show anything anyway because they're under the age of 18.
That's true.
Now, you could have alluded to it. You could have suggested that that's what was about to happen and then not shown anything. But I think that still would have caused a problem.
Sure.
But it probably was the smarter thing to do. Super chat from Frank Riker says, Dave, your best Yo Murdoch Rambo voice. Oh, God.
Stallone?
Yeah. I don't know. How does Stallone? I'm trying to think.
I don't think I've ever heard you do Stallone.
I don't really do Stallone. I do caricatures of people. So I'm just trying to think of like, Yo Murdoch. Be something like that. You know what I mean? Like it'd be something like that, I guess. Yeah.
Michael Myers, what are your Michael? Hey, what's up, dude? What are your thoughts on the 1986 film Hitcher?
The Hitcher, is that the one with what's his face from Blade Runner that just died? Rutger Hauer?
Yeah,
is that Rutger Hauer?
Right. So I'll make sure to double check that. Movies that I don't watch frequently, I have to double check to make sure that I'm right.
I do too. Was that Rutger Hauer?
Yeah, Rutger Hauer. Yeah. And C. Thomas Howell, of course. C. Thomas.
Yep. The Hitcher. What was the question again?
Your thoughts. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, I loved it. I haven't seen it in years, though. Rutger Hauer is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't seen it in years. So maybe I'll watch that tonight. Ooh, maybe I'll fucking watch The Hitcher tonight. Get cozy on the couch with my cat and fucking watch The Hitcher. Be like, Veda, we're watching The Hitcher. That's right, we're fucking doing it. My cat's awesome.
Oh shit.
Let's see here. So 7 more minutes, then we'll call it a day.
Sounds good.
Adam Carl Green says, I read The Upcoming Irishman will be 3 hours and 30 minutes long. Do you have a favorite long length film? At least 3 hours. I heard that too, and I don't think that is long. That's like fucking. How long was Lonesome Dove? That fucking 90s miniseries Lonesome Dove. Do you fucking remember that Lonesome Dove?
My favorite long movie right now would probably at the top of the list. I'd have to say Endgame, Avengers Endgame. That was good. I enjoyed it. It doesn't feel like a 3-hour flick because of the pacing and just
right.
I thought it would because, like I said, I don't get charged up for comic book movies like most people do. But I will say that for the length that Endgame is, which I think it's just riding on that 3-hour mark. I don't know if it's exactly 3. Is it? Someone in the chat room help me out with that. Is it 3 hours or is it like riding that 3-hour line? It's not quite 3 hours. But anyways, I'd have to say Endgame would be my selection for that. For in that category of lengths of film.
Do you guys remember Was it a miniseries? Yes, it was a miniseries. The miniseries Lonesome Dove was 6 hours. Fucking insane. I never watched it, but I just remember that being a big thing. Robert Duvall, Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah. Okay, so I think, like, if this was a theatrical experience and The Irishman, which it will be released in theaters for a limited run because they want to set it up for Oscar contention. That's long for a movie theater experience. At home, in the comfort of your own home, where you can go to the bathroom, pause, and get snacks and shit, probably not really that big of a deal. But to answer your question directly, which was my favorite long movie.
I guess you put in the 3 hour mark.
Yeah, my favorite 3 hour movie is probably The Green Mile.
Is that 3 hours?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, that's a good fucking movie.
Oh, it's a great movie, man.
Yeah, it's about 3 hours long. Yeah.
I might watch that here. I haven't seen that in a while.
You'll be watching The Green Mile. I'll be watching The Hitcher. What the fuck is going on? Okay, 5 minutes. Let's see here.
Blu-ray Addict. Thoughts on Wolf of Wall Street? Amazing film. I couldn't agree more. Love that flick.
I can't remember who DiCaprio was up against that year, but I remember being stunned that he didn't win.
McConaughey from Dallas Buyers.
Oh, yeah.
That's tough.
He's good too.
McConaughey's performance in Dallas Buyers that year was just, even Leto's performance as that's why Leto got the supporting actor for it. I agree. I thought, like, man, you know, it's not that Leo wasn't good enough to get the Oscar for that. It just, McConaughey, man, just fucking crushed it with Dallas Buyers Club.
He did. Yeah, he did. And, you know, I mean, DiCaprio has been nominated 5 times, I believe, 5 or 6 times and won once. Tom Hanks, people often forget that although Tom Hanks has 2 back-to-back Oscars, he's been nominated 5 times.
Yeah.
And it was only a matter of time before DiCaprio, you know, was nominated again and won. I mean, there's some people even speculating that he could be nominated again for, you know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, I mean, the guy's just fucking uber talented.
I mean, the thing with DiCaprio is this: he could have gone his whole career without winning an Oscar, and I'd still enjoy his movies and still go see him. You know what I mean? He's just that good of an actor. Yeah, exactly. I've never been one that your career is not defined by trophies. You know?
No, absolutely not. I couldn't agree with you more.
Bobby Hall. Hey, I like your hockey, whatever. Right? Isn't that a hockey player? Tony, how would you rank the Karate Kid films? Also, do I like Cobra Kai? Yeah, I mean, Karate Kid is, you're talking now, my all-time favorite movie. Yes,
and Tony and I, about 2 or 3 months ago, did a whole thing on Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai season 2. Yeah. Ranking them, I mean, it's probably Karate Kid, then Karate Kid 2, and then 3. It's not really ranking them. It's just the sequence of their release. I mean,
so in that order,
in the order. Although I will say this, I probably would put Cobra Kai above Karate Kid 3. I do like what they're doing with Cobra Kai.
I'm really looking forward to season 3.
So am I, and I hear they're going to Okinawa, which is going to be really cool that they're bringing. I don't know if that's true.
Right.
You read shit online, guys, so don't take what I'm saying right now for a grain of salt. It could be totally bogus bullshit.
Don't take it as the gospel.
Exactly. Do not take it as the gospel. But if it is true, then that means they're bringing Chosen back into the equation. And the reason why I say I put Cobra Kai above Karate Kid 3 is simply this. When you look at part 2, okay, and Daniel fights this death match against Chosen, then he comes back to the States, and you're going to tell me that he's getting bullied by this dude now all of a sudden, that he can't fucking hold his own, and he just survived a fucking death match? Like, the storytelling of that, it should have gone, part 3 should have been 2, where he defends his title, and then go to Okinawa and do the death match. Because from a storytelling perspective, it's like, that made no sense. Daniel should have been walking back like, yeah, I'm the fucking man, just survived the death match. But he's coming back, and he's a little fucking bitch.
Yeah, you mean in what movie? In
part 3, Karate.
Oh, part 3. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah,
it didn't make sense. So from a storytelling point of view, it falls way out of sequence of the events that just happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the reason why. And I mean, Cobra Kai, they talk about just doing your homework and nailing it, and nailing the character arcs of Johnny and Daniel and how everything's unfolding. It's for a YouTube series. It's a fresh of breath air, because in a PC culture, they're doing shit that, like, I'm like, wow, okay, they're getting away with a lot, and I love it. And it's just well done. You know what I mean? It's just so good. So
that's Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai.
Yeah, Cobra Kai is really good. I was actually, I got to be honest with you, I was surprised with how much I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little cheesy and fun, but it's very well done.
It is. It's
very well done. So I was surprised. I was very surprised. All right, it's 9:30. That's going to do it for Tony and I here on this episode of Two Dudes and Some BS bullshit. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. Thank you for everyone who helped support the channel via super chats. We really appreciate it. Tony and I will be back next week. We're going to be back.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, the new It 2017, and the movie being released this weekend. So if you have not had a chance to see It Chapter 2 this weekend, you will be warned that we will be talking spoilers. So we're going to put that, make that very apparent in the marketing of the show, and of course in the actual title of the show as well. So you are warned. You may want to skip the live feed and come back and watch it afterwards. Not a big deal. The show's always going to be there. That's the great thing about modern technology and how we do things nowadays, that the show will be there. You can go back and watch it. Yeah, that's what we're going to do, and that is next week. If you want to follow Tony Michael on Instagram, his link is in the description. Fuck are you waiting for? I'm about to heart your fucking image that you posted today about the Haddonfield country boy getting his ass kicked by Michael Myers. I love that shit.
You know, I've been doing all the girls and the girls off and off the girls. And I told my boy, I was like, dude, can you do one for me? I got to get a guy on here. I got to get Michael off and off, you know. But then we started thinking about, like, how do we want to do this scene? And I'm like, well, I want to stick to the traditional, in my mind, how I picture Haddonfield. Haddonfield to me has always been this Midwest country farm town. You
Absolutely.
know, when you talk about the description and the synopsis and where, you know, what the writers were thinking of, that's how I envision it in my mind. Tractors, farm boys, country boys, and shit like that. So I told him, like, dude, throw on some coveralls. Don't wear a shirt. I'm gonna have like one of these like trucker hats on the ground. You're going full blown country boy. We got the tractor in the shot, you know, and everything. Kind of like the way I wanted the scene to be is it was like the moment of where Michael throws him off. So the tractor's a little bit crooked because he didn't get a chance to park it properly, and then Michael's grabbing him up and he's about to bash him with the fucking hammer.
No, it looks great. I love it. It looks great. It looks great. It's awesome stuff. So yeah, follow Tony Michael, guys. He's posting some awesome shit on there. And yeah, all my links are in the description. I'm on Instagram as well now. I will try to post more often. I'm just still getting the hang of all this shit. I got fucking 3 platforms I got to worry about. I got 4. I got the YouTube community section. I got Facebook. I got Twitter. And now I got Instagram. Fuck!
Jesus, man. That's why I'm glad I only do Instagram.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. So just be patient. I will be posting more on a regular basis. So yeah, in the meantime, in between them, that's all for us.
Wait. I got to get this out. I didn't ask you.
Oh.
Thoughts on sorry, this is what do you call end credit scene. Your thoughts on Lindsay? Kyle returning as Lindsay.
Oh, I uploaded a video talking about it.
I just never asked you.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's fan service. I mean, to bring back Tommy Doyle, that is something that makes sense to me. I mean, it's still fan service, but if you're going to bring back anybody, you bring back Tommy Doyle, the character of Tommy Doyle. And the reason why, like, if the choice was, do we bring back Lindsay or Tommy? Well, let's bring back both. Okay, yes, but let's say we had to pick one. You pick Tommy because Tommy is integral to the overall message of that original movie, the movie that is still canon, the only movie from the original series that is still canon, because Tommy was the one that believed in the boogeyman. Tommy was the one that was trying to convince Laurie in so many ways that the boogeyman was real. You know, Laurie, what's the boogeyman? You know, and my friends say that there's, you know, about the boogeyman. There's no such thing, right? Laurie thinks there's no such thing. Tommy sees the boogeyman out the window. Tommy's trying to convince that the boogeyman. Now, I understand that Lindsay's the only one that believes Tommy, but that's irrelevant at the end of the day to the overall message. message, because at the end of the movie, Laurie says it was the boogeyman.
Right.
And Dr. Loomis says, as a matter of fact, it was. And so, so Tommy was right. You know what I mean? And Tommy's Tommy's important. Tommy's important to the story. Lindsay, okay, great. It's great for, Kyle. Okay, that's great. I'm happy for her. But at the end of the day, it's not needed. The character of Tommy, I get. Lindsay, it's just fun. It's just a little bit of icing that the fans will go, ooh, it's fun. I'm not saying that they're not going to make her role important. Maybe they will. But in terms of, do we need to bring this character back? Not really. I mean, I would, bring back Brackett before I'd bring back Lindsay,
Sure.
so, but yeah, it's fan service, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. According to Jamie Lee Curtis, there are many more characters and their performers coming back. So I'm like, okay.
What are we going to resurrect Donald Pleasance from the grave?
I don't know. Like I said in my video, I think they should bring in Mr. Riddle and Charlie Bowles.
There you go.
I'm telling you, Mr. Riddle's, he's 127, but bring him the fuck back. That's what I want to see.
Cool. I meant to ask you that earlier, and I wanted to know your thought. I know you got the video up. I just,
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. Yeah.
This time, for real, we're done.
Yeah, this time. Okay, we're done. All right, we're out of here. All right, we'll talk to you.